Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Can you hear me? All right. Awesome. Welcome in, everybody. All right. All right. Marianne said she will be back as soon as she gets done with dinner. Doug is in the house. Good to have you, Doug. Welcome in. L is in the house. Good to have you, L. AJ. Good to have you. Spo is in the house. Good to have you. Awesome. Good to have you guys. I'll probably be listening only. I'm not feeling too well. Love you guys. You got it, AJ. Thanks for letting us know. Appreciate that. So, see, 2C. Hi, DD. Welcome in, 2C. Good to have you. Just give it another minute and then we'll start. So, there's a lot of things on this. Oleg, welcome in. Good to have you, Oleg. All right, everybody. Let's just go ahead and start. We'll go ahead and start. And it's when people come in, Al, AJ, if you're feeling up to it, I know you're not feeling well. And Doug, just let them know that what we're covering, we are covering again because there's some other information that I was able to gather, and you may all have it. I don't know, but it makes a little bit more sense. And then on some levels, it doesn't really make sense. So I want to go ahead and cover certain things here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start. Barney, hello, everyone. Welcome in, Barney. So apparently now the autopsy that we're talking about, and I got a message from Carolina about Brian Enton discussing with another pathologist, for better lack of words, someone who does autopsy, and got kind of her take on what they thought. Okay, sounds good, Doug. We'll get to you in a second. I can bring you up, or just give me a few. Let me go over this first, and then we'll bring you up. So basically, Brian Enton's talking to Dr. Priya. Dr. Priya. And we're going to watch a little clip later. But right now, he's talking to Dr. Priya, and he's asking her about, first of all, what does it really mean, literally, to have a second autopsy done privately, like from the family, like in this case? Now, I'll be honest with y'all, I didn't even know that the first autopsy was already done. I kind of figured the Mississippi, state of Mississippi would have done that, okay? But even more thinking about it now, I remember at the beginning when they found the body, and then they said that they were going to look into it, and then they said that the family was having the body sent to Washington and whatnot for a private examination. I just thought it was going straight there. Of course, in time, we figured that no, they already did one. So why that's important is because I'm not really sure. I'm sure there's reasons why family has a second autopsy done, just kind of to make sure, they can get what they can get. But I didn't understand some of the dynamics here. So that's what I want to really talk about. So the question was asked, what is literally the purpose or the reason the family would have done this? Like, what can they really gain out of this? Okay. The second autopsy. And why did they not Like, what is the whole purpose? And according to this other pathologist who does these, and she does it now privately for people who request it, families, it just really depends, because when the state does these autopsies, they don't have to present a lot of this, for a better lack of words. They kept the neck, right? They ended up keeping the brain of Nolen as well. They ended up, obviously, the organs that automatically comes out when they do an autopsy. And Dr. Pira was saying that this is normal. This is what they do. They take everything out. They go looking through the liver. They go looking through anything that's possible. They look at on the inside to see what play does it have? Like, what is the science telling them? And so when Brian asked, well, there wasn't a neck, talking about the neck injury to the back of his neck, the underlining inside. And he said they didn't get it back. So what does that really mean? And basically, she's saying that is normal, that they would remove the neck. Okay, that's normal. It's not like anything sinister. They just removed it because that's how they do their job. Okay, they removed the neck part in the back where they found that mark, and they remove it, and they don't have to share it. That's the kicker right there that got me. They don't have to share it. The state does not have to share it. Hey, Deb Niner fan, welcome in. They don't have to share that with a private examiner who's going to do an autopsy as well. They don't have to provide that neck. Okay, they don't have to provide anything. They also kept the brain. Now, when Brian was asking Dr. Pira, he was asking her, well, like, do you think that he could have become unalive by getting hit on the back where the neck, where that mark was? And she said, it's really can't really tell, without really doing an exam. She said, but here's the thing. It's already been done, the exam. And so anytime you do a secondary examination, it's not going to really tell you a whole lot if you don't have those pieces. And it is going to be altered because the first person who obviously does the examination, in this case, the state, there's going to be a lot of things moved around, a lot of things gone, a lot of, for better lack of words, a lot of moving parts around. So it's not going to be like if a pathologist was coming in there to do an autopsy, it's not like he's going to see everything fresh from the beginning, because someone's already altered a lot of this stuff because they already did one. So then that asks me the question, well, why in the hell even do one? Now, I'm sure they have their reasons. I'm sure maybe it's a peace of mind. Maybe they don't agree with the outcome of what the state says on what would have happened in any case. So they say, I want to have a second opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of valid reasons, and it's way above my level of understanding. But in this case, just to know that the state doesn't have to, literally does not have to go ahead and release anything that they keep, because they are the state and they are the ones who do the autopsy. It's almost like, from my interpretation, it was almost like, well, you get what you get, right? Make do with what you got. Now, they did agree to work together in a sense of coming and sitting at the table when they get the autopsies and the toxicology reports. But there's going to be a lot of things that are moving within the body of the first autopsy that whoever does a toxicology report is probably going to have a little bit more of the inside, because, once again, they're the ones that are messing with all the moving parts, for a better lack of words. So I'm not really sure what this whole honestly, I'm not really sure, other than I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm just not sure. Like in this case, she was saying, Dr. Pira was saying, I wouldn't worry too much about the neck. I'd be more concerned about the brain. Okay, the brain. And Brian Etten had said, well, okay, why? And she said, because the brain is going to tell you a heck of a lot more than that mark on the neck. So when I hear that, I'm like, and they kept the brain. And they don't have to give that brain to anybody. In fact, I bet you they don't give the brain up to anybody, because this autopsy, the second one, was already done, and the attorney Crump went ahead and talked about it already. Well, that made no sense, because that's why you heard a lot of inconclusive, because they didn't have the parts that they needed, because they didn't send those parts. Now, you can speculate, we can speculate why they didn't send them, but the bottom line is they didn't send them. That's just the bottom line. Manex, welcome in, Manex. So I hope you understand where I'm going with this. There is a second autopsy done. The first autopsy by the state didn't really say anything, because why? It's an ongoing investigation. And they did what? They kept the neck, which is where the mark was at, in the back, underlined underneath the skin, the mark, the red mark. And they kept the brain. They took a lot of things out of the body, because that's what they normally do when they do an autopsy. So it's not like anything nefarious. That's just how they do it. Okay? But it's just the idea that I'm not sure what Crump was going to gain by releasing this information. It's almost like, this is how I get it in layman's terms. Here's a puzzle, put it together. Tell me what it is, but I'm not going to give you all the pieces to let you know what the puzzle is. I'm going to keep all the main pieces, and you just tell me what you can make of it. You follow me? That's what I get in layman's terms. You're given only so much information, and the crucial information that you need, you're not given that crucial parts, that pieces of the puzzle. So then why come out and say anything anyway? Carol, welcome in, Carol. You understand what I'm saying? So it really, to me, I'm not sure it really makes a whole lot of sense, other than I'm sure it's a peace of mind, for one, literally to the family. But two, I'm sure this was called for because, and I'm just going to say this, the sheriff said from the beginning, he didn't see anything that was, how did he word it? That he didn't see anything that would show something was done, that, there was basically nothing to see here. He didn't say that, but he said, I can't think of the exact damn words to translate that. But basically there was, for better lack of words, nothing nefarious here, nothing to show here. And that could have ticked off the family to say, well, something had to happen. Our son could swim. Our son could do X, Y, and Z. Our son was healthy, which all those things are true. The problem is they don't know what's in his body. They don't know, was he highly inebriated? They don't know, could it have been other thing, chemical, for a better lack of words, narcotics in his body? They don't know that. And here's the thing. The toxicology report, the first one who does that also, gets really more of the, for a better lack of words, substance of what they find. That's according to Dr. Pira, of my understanding. Okay? And now this is way above me. So that's why you're hearing with the attorney for the family, Ben Crump, you're hearing that this well-known pathologist who did this examination, well, he couldn't give you anything because he's missing parts of the body. Kind of makes sense now, right? It's missing pieces of the body, and the pieces that they need, they don't have. So the guy can't fabricate what happened. He can't test what happened, and he can't like look at the body and start figuring things out because a lot of things are gone out of the body. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm not sure what was the gain other than, and this is important, probably the peace of mind of the family. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it's kind of like if you're a fireman and you go to a fire, even though you know that everything's coming down with that fire, you still go out there and you still, put that water out, and you still go ahead and do everything you can because it says you did everything you could. Kind of like the same concept, I would think. That's a simple analogy for me. Deb Niner says the officer Tatum put on another video today. Have you talked about it? I talked about the first two. I'm waiting for the third one. I'm new to the case, just came upon it last night and trying to catch up, trying to figure out what happened on the island. Got you, Deb. Well, you're at the right place because we've been covering this since the beginning. So, there is videos out there that we have put out. We'll try to fill you in as much as we can along the process. But that's the whole thing. I'm not sure what they're really going to get. And that's why that pathologist, okay, the one that did it for the family, that's why he couldn't give anything of any substance conclusions, because he didn't have the moving parts. And when you don't have the moving parts, you can't just make up the moving parts, right? It's your credibility on the line. So you can only say inconclusive due to lack of brain, inconclusive due to no neck, inconclusive due to no internal parts. What do you have? Inconclusive. So I'm not so sure. Okay, Deb, I'll definitely look at it. Thank you. It's just the idea that it makes no sense to me. But once again, this is totally out of my realm. I am not. These guys are a lot smarter. They know why and what they're looking for. But according to what Brian Anton was trying to ask for, and what it sounded by Dr. Pira, was that, well, they don't have to give you those parts. And it is common to, cut out the neck. It is common to separate and take out the brain. It is common to do the heart and this and that. Well, these are major organs. And some of these major organs they need to have in order to go ahead and find exactly what could have caused this. You can't find something if you don't have the parts you need. And the state doesn't have to give it to them. Why? Because it's under investigation. You follow me? You see where this is going. So you're probably, in my opinion, you're probably going to have the private sector with the state, and they're going to have odds with this because they don't have the information that they needed for their autopsy because the state didn't release it, but the state doesn't have to release it. So therefore, what do you think you're going to have? You're probably going to have a lot of mistrust. This is going to be a very big thing where you're going to have people saying one thing on one side and one thing on the other side. Why? Because they didn't have all the pieces to do the puzzle. They didn't have all the pieces to tell you what the puzzle looked like. I mean, does that make any sense to you guys? And do you guys understand what I'm talking about? Photon, welcome in, Photon. Tusi, welcome in. Why would the state keep some parts? That's just strange. All parts should go with you would think, Tusi, all parts would go. And I would think all parts would go, especially when they have talked about working this out together, right? More eyes on it, more people looking at it. That's what Sheriff Ledbetter said. More eyes looking at it. It's going to help more. But then all of a sudden they get the body, but they get not the parts that are needed. I'm not saying, and they don't have to, and it's not anything nefarious. According to Dr. Perry, a lot of states will do that. They'll hold certain parts because they're under evidence. They want to be able to say, here is this, and they have that chain of custody, and they can say, here's this. It hasn't been altered. This is what we did. But if they pass that on to somebody else, guess what? They can't say this has been altered. No, it didn't look like this. You follow me? I get it on both ends. All I'm saying is you're going to have a lot of mistrust. That's without a doubt. And I never knew that they didn't have to give the whole body, is why I bring this up. Annie, 2C, I'm sick over it. Annie, my God, how the hell do we know what they do? And that's the sad thing, because you're going to have a lot of mistrust, because you're going to ask the question. I guarantee you, whenever this goes to the grand jury, okay, when the DA sends this to the grand jury, why do you think the attorney Crump, why do you think he made that comment? Remember during that funeral? You want to know what comment I'm talking about? Let me tell you what comment I'm talking about. When he said, let our pathologists go up there and say and be able to speak to the grand jury. Remember that? He said that. Let our pathologists who did the autopsy, who couldn't really do the complete autopsy because he didn't have any of the parts that he needed, so he couldn't do a complete one. They're saying let him talk about why, what they found, because technically they don't have a say. It's really more the state that's telling the grand jury this is what we found. That's why, and I never understood why Crump had made that statement, because I thought, well, hell yeah, he's going to talk. The pathologist did the autopsy, so sure he's going to talk, right? No, not necessarily. That's why the lawyer Crump said, let's have our pathology also be able to speak. That tells me right off the get-go, now that I'm processing this information, it tells me that's not probably going to happen. You understand what I'm saying? Because the grand jury is going to hear the evidence and they're going to make a decision. But what they're not going to probably hear is that the other pathologist from the family, they couldn't get anything really of substance because they never had the moving parts to test. You see how that all that shit works? That's how it happens. And this is why you have the mistrust. Now, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't give all the parts. I'm just saying this is what this other independent pathologist is saying. They don't have to give those parts up. That's probably why they kept it. And my knowledge in law enforcement is telling me, well, it's probably because it's not only a investigation, ongoing investigation, but technically that would be considered evidence. And you don't want to just give it to someone else, because now someone else has the evidence. And who's to say what they could do to tarnish anything? Just saying. Something to think about. Mayonnaise could be getting specialized high-tech imaging of the missing vertebrae or sent to medical specialists to read microfractures to reconstruct. That hasn't even come up, and I haven't ever heard that, but that's a good point, Manex. L, to me, is suspicious. I know it's being said that it is normal, but all of these things, the throat, I get it. I totally get it. And I agree with you. But I didn't even know that, I didn't understand why they didn't send those parts. I thought, they just didn't want to send them because it's because they don't have to send them. It's kind of like I said, tell us what the picture is on that puzzle, but you're only going to get half of those puzzles pieces. Good luck on making that picture, known as to what it is. Deb, I'm interested because of the players involved. Just heard a little bit last night, but knowing the boat got towed away real fast and one of the kids Mom is a judge. Just need to know what happened. We will fill you in here in 1 second, Deb. Any, guarantee you, any. They should have not buried him without his body parts. Very well said. Deb, meaning one of the boats. L, please hit the like and share the stream, everybody. Thanks, I forgot. L, no problem, Doug. Deb, they should have allowed another one to do an autopsy so they aren't questions. You would think, right? To me, that's a common sense thing to do. But for whatever reasons, the state didn't want to do that. And then the question becomes why? And then it's obviously now because they don't have to. They don't have to play ball if they don't want to. They can take their bats and go home. Just a figure of speech. But you're right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Doug says, wait till you hear what I got to say. Got you, Doug. I'm going to bring you in. Matter of fact, let me send you that link. Let me send you that link. All right. All right. Here's that link, Doug. So the other thing I wanted to point out is that apparently Cajun Navy came out and they said that, remember when Crump said, not only at the funeral, but it was stated that he said that the body was found in the water face down, clothed. And the question he asked was, how did he be clothed when he was on shorts and he wasn't wearing a shirt? Remember that? And Doug says, devil's in the details, no doubt. You remember that when he said that? Well, Cajun Navy came out and said, we never said that. And then they said, please don't misinterpret what we're saying. We never said that the victim was found with fully clothed and laying face down. We never said that. That's big. That's huge. Because now Cajun Navy, and they're doing a lot of talking, at least the guy that's really runs a lot of this is doing a lot of the talking, right? But even then, welcome in. So even that, they're doing a lot of the talking, right? It's not like the Cajun Navy's hiding anything, but they're saying, we didn't say that. We did not say that he was clothed fully and face down in the water. That's what Crump said, they said. And when you start making mistakes like that, it doesn't help you in your case. It really doesn't. That was a bad thing to do, without a doubt. The third-party autopsy pathologists are going to have a DNA, the bones to prove ID when they get them. Yeah, I hope so, Manix. I really do. Deb Manor fan, is that because there is a judge involved in this? I mean, not just the judge, but the judge's son is involved, and I think that's what you meant. The judge's stepson is involved, Warren, because he was there. And yeah, I mean, let's be honest, guys. When you know the judge who works as a judge and you're in a small area, a town, community, county, it's a small county. I mean, just the idea that, yeah, sometimes, remember, the pen is mightier than the sword. Sometimes being a judge got its advantages. Just saying. It's evidence, okay, but they are not bringing them to the court. It's evidence, okay, but they're not bringing them to court. Here's the thing. What's happening here, Annie, is that they're giving the people what they found, what they suspect, what they feel happened, what they feel is the conclusion of and they may be totally right. They're giving you from their perspective. You're just not able to hear from the other side perspective because you're not in court. You're not arguing this in court. This is just a grand jury to see if there's enough information for something to go to court. You see what I'm saying? For something to go, is there enough evidence here to warrant to have a trial to go to court? If the grand jury says yes, okay, now there's going to be that back and forth. But the grand jury has to first say there's enough evidence there to merit it. And that's why more than likely Ben Crump had made that comment. I demand, why don't you let our pathologist speak? Why hope to God they let our pathologist speak when it comes to the grand jury? Let us have our own person speaking there too. Because normally that's not how it's done. Right? When they present the case to the grand jury. Something to think about. Just something to think about. Doug, I say this wrong. Kinstishki. I'm not sure what the hell that is, but it sounds good to me. Josiah sent the 30 gem flowers. Thank you, Josiah. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Mannix, that is a terrible about the missing parts, no matter what it is. But according to the independent pathologist by the name of Dr. Pira, she said they don't have to release it. Now, common sense tells me that, well, yeah, it is kind of evidence, and it's kind of like you always tag evidence, right? And if you want to keep the evidence in the chain of custody, you're not going to want to give it to another individual, especially, someone that could come up with something. You understand what I'm saying? It's just not, it really doesn't make sense why Ben Crump did this, in my opinion, because there's no way they could have had that information. Annie, thank you. Thank you. Do I sound nuts to you? L, thanks so much, Josiah, for supporting the channel. L, no, Annie. I agree. It doesn't really make sense. Not to me at all, everybody. Not to me at all. Annie, Doug, I have a very logical explanation for a lot of weirdness. Okay. And we're going to get to you. Thank you, L. Thank you for the silver star. Thank you for supporting the channel. L says, but the question is, why not? Why not send it? Even if they don't have to, why not? What are you going to do with it? Like Annie said, take it to court? I understand. I totally understand. L, of course, Annie, I see exactly the same way. If there's nothing to hide, send it all. All right. Deb, Nolan's friend who has been speaking out said that right before he left, his own brother had gotten into a fight. Need to know more about this. You got it. Well, I got the perfect guy that's going to be able to explain that to you. Let me catch up on these, and then I'll let you go ahead and take over the floor. Doug, Max, is that good old boy network? That's how it usually works. You got that. They do what they want to do, like a lot of people, in my opinion, that control over certain things like bananas. Yes, I can agree with that. Oops, in my opinion. Annie, I know, DD, but if you're done the investigation in the body, why keep just them parts? Because you want to control the narrative, Annie. You want to control the narrative. You don't want anybody else to be able to counteract your findings. You want to control the narrative. And how do you control it? Just don't give it. You know what I mean? I know it sounds shitty, but that's basically how it is. Al Photon, well, I agree with him, says Deb Niner. Tarek, hi, DD, welcome in, Tarek. Deb Niner, yes, you do when there's our questions. Yes, you do when there's our questions. Ben is doing his job when they are up against the good old boys. Oh, no doubt about it. I'm not saying he's not doing his job. I'm just saying that if you knew that, well, he probably didn't know he wasn't going to get all the body parts. But I can assure you that once they got the body and the pathologist said, hey, there's no throat here. Hey, there's no brain here. Hey, there's no this or that here. What am I supposed to do with this? It's like having the skeleton and having the body of a car with no engine. How am I supposed to fix this? I don't have all the things. You understand what I'm saying? So, yeah, he's doing it all he can, but all he can sometimes ain't good enough, in all honesty. Tarek, hi L, hi Tarek, hi Photon, hi Tarek, Manex. Could the missing vertebrae be a smoking gun evidence? According to Dr. Pira, that when she was asked that question, not so much like the smoking gun, but asked the question in reference to the neck, right? The missing neck. Well, according to her, she doesn't really, I can't speak for her. I heard what she said. I just can't word it the way she did. But basically, she would be more concerned about the brain because the brain will say more on what happened to him than the neck, according to her, if I understood it right, and I think I did. According to her, the brain would say more. So the brain is more crucial, and the brain is what's not there as well. Annie, well, I could not bury my kid without their parts. My daughter had one, which I did not want, but they had to cause of unaliving. It makes me sick. I get it, Annie, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Manix, that's what I'm wondering as well. Tarek, what did they do with the butt? They have it. They have him, and they're going to have him in evidence, and they're going to present it to the grand jury because they're going to say, this is what we have. In other words, they're not going to get any pushback because the other individuals privately done by the family's request cannot really give you any answers because they don't have those parts. So basically, they're going to present it, what they have, and there's no way to really, in my opinion, there's really no way to dispute it. That's why the attorney Ben Crump, in my opinion, made the comment, let our guy get in there. Let our guy go in there. Let our pathologist go in there and talk to the jury. Let him talk to the jury too, the grand jury. That's not going to happen because it don't work that way. They're not going to do that. I don't think they are. If they do, hey, more power to it, but I just don't see that. Holly, they kept the brain to my God, Terry, L1, and they won't tell us. Correct, Tarek. All right, everybody. I'm going to bring in Doug. Doug, you got the floor, my friend. Make it happen. Are you there, Doug?
Already, Doug. Well,
make it happen, buddy.
You got me again. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, buddy. Loud and clear. Buttercup's in the house.
I got a little echo, but I'll work through it. So I want to ask you, where are we hearing that vertebrae parts of the neck bones were missing?
Brian Etten had did an interview with Dr. Pira just a few minutes ago, and I got it on here. I'm going to play it, but if you want me to play it, I can play it first. And she talks about the vertebrae. She talks about the impact, and she talks about why that pathologist on the private sector could not get that information because you got to have that information. You got to have those pieces that were not there. You know, the neck, the brain, etc.
But she said that the neck was actually missing. I thought it was only the brain and the throat.
No, the neck.
The whole neck itself, huh?
Yes. That's why she said that they couldn't you'd have to, and she says that's normal when you do the according to her, when you do the autopsies, you cut every part, you know, the head, the neck, they take out the brain, the in most cases the heart. You take these things because they have to examine sometimes in certain cases the liver because of the alcohol just so many different things. So she was saying that it's not like it's unusual. This does happen quite often. You know, everything usually gets taken out for the most part, in her words. But
right.
I got the video if you want to play it.
I'm reading that the incision made on the back of the neck isn't as typical as the front incision, because when you're taking out the throat and all the muscles that are in the throat, it's a procedure called the Rokitansky, which I said, and that is actually done from the front. So with the brain being missing and the throat muscle, and then this third incision looking at the back of the head, tells me that they probably seen something in the brain and the throat. Remember, Nolen Wells plays football. Was there TBI or concussion, which could
That's a good
also
point.
lead to the bruising on the back of the neck?
Very good point. Very good point.
It
That's a
would
very
also
good point.
explain why they kept the brain, because when there's TBI, they usually will keep the brain longer because he was buried without it. They kept the brain.
Yes, that is
So
correct.
that's something that happens a lot of times during TBI, like the Aaron Hernandez case.
Right, right.
Right?
I agree. I remember the case. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's just being construed in a way where it was a blunt force trauma, because to cause them underlying neck issues, it only takes 10 to 5 G's to cause bruising, but it takes 70 to 120 G's to cause a concussion.
Well, why don't we watch it and see what they say? You
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
do that? Let's go ahead and watch it. Everybody, we're going to watch that video so we can all hear it. Okay. And yeah, we'll go from there. So let me go in here. Okay.
What matters, what doesn't matter, and how much can we really rely on the private autopsy.
Welcome in.
I'm getting into all of it in this episode of Brian Ensign Investigates.
All right, hey guys. So this Nolen Wells case, which I first started covering last week, I mean, it's really sad no matter which way you look at it. He just seemed like a wonderful young man, really bright future. But there's new details coming out. There's new questions about what really happened. And the newest thing that I really want to unpack in this episode is this private autopsy. Whether we should take it seriously, not because of who did it, but because of, and then I'm going to ask my forensic pathologist friend here in a second who can break this down. But, when they did the first autopsy, there's a lot of things that were removed from the body. There were a lot of changes made. How does that impact the second autopsy? I'm going to get to all that in a minute. Let me break down some of the basics for you first before I get to my interview with her. The results of the private autopsy, 18-year-old Nolen Wells, they officially came back as inconclusive. There was a press conference from attorney Benjamin Crump, who's representing the family, went over all the details. There's a report, which you can see here. Preliminary findings showed that the Mississippi teen's cause and manner of death are undetermined, according to this forensic pathologist that the family hired, and they require investigation. And the pathologist is Roger Mitchell. He's the president of the National Medical Association. But there are some interesting components, again, that I want to dive into this report. And they laid out 7 specific questions, which I'm going to go through one by one with, again, my forensic pathologist friend in a second. But a little bit of the backstory. This all began when Nolen was found dead on Horn Island, which is in Mississippi, after disappearing on July 4th. He went to the island with his friends, but they returned alone without him, which is one of the things that the family finds suspicious and that there are still a lot of questions about. His cell phone was not with him, but his cell phone managed to make it back to the mainland. Again, something that the family does not understand and finds to be strange. A friend said Nolen stayed back after he met a girl. Something else his family says doesn't add up. As for the private autopsy, there's an area on the back of Nolen's head that attorney Benjamin Crump says the pathologist was especially interested in. Listen to this.
Dissection of the back of the head during the layered posterior neck dissection revealed a 12 by 8-inch focal area of rare discoloration in the deep soft tissues overlaying the occipital bone. And he talked about how he found red discoloration when he cut open into the back of his head towards the occipital bone, and he saw the red discoloration. And We actually saw the pictures of it. It's significant. You can't help but notice why is this dark red here in the back of his head.
Okay, there are limitations with a private autopsy, which is what I want to talk about. But it's also was acknowledged by Benjamin Crump and was acknowledged by the pathologist that did the private autopsy.
This forensic pathologist identified several limitations during the second autopsy that create barriers to establishing a definitive cause and manner of death for Nolen Xavier Wells. And that's important. He talks about the fact that we didn't get to see the body when it was first recovered, like the medical examiner working for Mississippi would have said.
So there's something else I want to point out that came out of this press conference with Crump. There's been, and not just this press conference, but with the whole thing since this began, there's been bad information that's circulated around. There was a photo initially that was shown that was from the wrong date. There's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of speculation. And some of it has even come from Benjamin Crump, who is the family's official lawyer. Look at this. The Cajun Navy, United Cajun Navy tweeted this, said, we didn't say, and actually tweeted it at Benjamin Crump, at Attorney Crump. We didn't say Nolen was fully clothed when found. He was wearing only swim trunks. Please don't misrepresent our words. Now, what they're talking about, I'll just play you guys the bite so you can see it. But Crump said that the United Cajun Navy said that Nolen was found face down, fully clothed, which is something that the family found suspicious. And they were sourcing that back to the United Cajun Navy, which the United Cajun Navy says is not true and that they never said it. But listen to what Crump said.
That the United Cajun Navy are so forthcoming. The fact that they told us, we haven't heard from any of their local officials, that Nolen was found face down, fully clothed. Well, that's significant to us because the last time we saw him on the videos, he was without a shirt. So at what point did he put on a shirt?
So again, just something to consider. Just to reiterate, the United Cajun Navy is saying that that is not what they said, that they did not say that he was wearing a shirt. It just kind of goes back to the point I was trying to make, that there's been a lot of confusion and that there's been rumors and some of it isn't even really necessarily intentional. It's just these things start to spread and it can end up hurting the investigation or just leading all of us to believe something that's not necessarily true. So I've been trying to go at this one just with an open mind. I understand what the family is saying, and I also found it, and if you go back and look at my episode from last week when I interviewed the retired FBI agent, you know, the sheriff initially came out and said that this looked like, I think he said, an accident, like within a couple of hours, which was probably a mistake, and I think is what set the family off. And you can imagine if that was your kid, like there really wasn't an investigation yet. And we still don't know what happened. So let me talk with someone I've known for a while, forensic pathologist, Dr. Priya Banerjee. And look, with this kind of stuff, it's scientific, and you need a forensic pathologist to talk to break down a report like this, which is what I'm going to do in this episode, because this goes above all of our heads. I mean, and it's such a specialty, people who do autopsies. So let me get to my conversation with her. Dr. Banerjee, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. So it's always nice to see you. Yes. And I thought of you right away when I was reading over this private autopsy report, because I'm like, I need to talk to her to understand. It goes, so much of it is so scientific and goes above my head. The first thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, there was the official autopsy done by the state of Mississippi.
Yes.
And then it sounds like things were removed from the body and that kind of thing. And then the body gets sent to Washington, D.C. for this private autopsy. Can we really rely on what's being reported from the second autopsy? Because are things just disturbed so much from the first one?
So that's a really great question. So I'm speaking from sort of having played both roles, if you will. So I was a practicing medical examiner for a state system for over 11 years, and now I've transitioned to working privately. I still do plenty of autopsies, and interestingly, they could be primary autopsies or second autopsies, as in this family's case. And it is often a family that hires me, right? They want me to take a second look. sort of dot I's, cross T's, and give them what they think is an unbiased report. Okay.
So I have the hardest time turning my brain off at night and winding down. Right when I get into bed, I always seem to start thinking about everything I have to do the next day. It got so much better though when I started using, I drink mine 30 minutes before.
Times the neck structures as well. So it doesn't surprise me. He was, I think some, the audience may want to know, you may want to know that sometimes it is the prerogative of the primary pathologist, the first autopsy doctor, to keep sort of key parts. We always save tiny pieces, like we say dime size or nickel size pieces of tissue to look under the microscope if necessary. But sometimes you may want to keep larger structures for more analysis. Commonly, this is the brain, the heart, sometimes the neck structures as well. So it doesn't surprise me. He was, Nolen was decomposed, so I don't know if that plays into their analysis. Like they need to take a more, detailed look at it, and that may take more time, and it's their prerogative to keep it. You are always a little bit, I don't want to say handicapped, but it's challenging because the second autopsy, everything has been manipulated through the first exam, right? Nothing's in place. You have to sort of figure out what's there, what's not, and everything has been dissected. So it's not like looking at the heart in place, looking at the lungs in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I want to ask you, there was this one, and I went through the report. There's a lot of talk about something with the back of the neck, and what the report says is dissection of the back of the head during the layered posterior neck dissection revealed a 12 by 8 inch, forgive me if I'm pronouncing some of these things wrong, facial area of red discoloration in the deep soft tissues overlying the occipital bone.
Sure.
The etiology of this finding is unclear. There are no lacerations of the overlying skin nor fractures of the underlying skull. What is that? Because it sounds, is it back in this area?
Yeah. So where it's sort of like, I don't know if I can do this, but I have a lot of hair. So, but it's basically sort of the back lower part of the skull, the occipital bone or the occipital region, sort of like where your head meets the pillow, if not a little lower. Okay. And it's a very like nondescript large area. That's what he measured. And it is difficult to interpret what that means because at least there's no other injury surrounding it, is what he's saying. Like you look at the skull, you look at the skin, and you're like, well, is this a true injury? Or is it an artifact? Now, artifacts can be derived from either the sort of blood sort of pooling after the first exam, after the first autopsy exam, or is it an artifact of how the body was situated due to decomposition, right? There is significant changes in the tissue structure and the fluid shifts with decomposition. So I also don't know what to make of that. I read the report myself because it's in a peculiar region. And luckily, at least, even if it was an injury, it's not enough to like cause a skull fracture underneath it, right? So if it was a hard blow, it's not enough to have force on the skull.
So could he have been hit in the back of the head?
It's very difficult to say. I think if there was a strong enough hit, you would see more fracture, more sort of bleeding, like not just in that one region. You would see disruption potentially of the skin. You see a laceration from the scalp. Scalps bleed a lot, and then it would go deeper. So I really don't know, without seeing more of a photograph and sort of looking at it myself.
But just, I guess, based on what you saw, does it seem like that could have been what killed him?
Well, the bigger issue, Brian, I think, is what does the brain look like? And Dr. Mitchell wasn't able to do that, right? So
they kept the brain? I
think they did. It was not described in his report. And so to me, and you can see at the end of the autopsy, there's commentary about whether there was bleeding in and around the brain. So whether there's subdural or subarachnoid hemorrhage. Now, if there is a lethal blow to the head, we usually think it's associated with skull fracture or these regions of bleeding. If that's not there, then this is more likely artifact or something that didn't kill him. Does that make sense? He died with it, not because of it. It could be a minor, bruise or something. But, that's why I'm trying not to overinterpret it when there's sort of significant, outstanding pieces of knowledge.
And you say significant, outstanding pieces of knowledge. You know, the family, Ben Crump, they were at the NAACP this morning. They did a big press conference, really went through the whole report and, you know, highlighted that they still believe this is suspicious and some of the things like the back of the head. Do you think that's fair that they did that? I mean, like with what you know about the science, and should they have waited on the first autopsy? Because it sounds like you kind of need that to really know what happened.
Sure. So, you know, I think I don't want to play armchair quarterback, right? It's very, and I'm a mother. So God forbid I was in her shoes. Like when my daughter gets a bruise, my mind is out the window, you know, like all logic leaves me. So I can't speculate on what they're feeling, right? And I'm not an attorney to make a legal judgment from it. Now, I just, as general, like even practicing on a first autopsy, never release preliminary results. Okay. Now, I think that, you know, maybe it was to help the family. Dr. Mitchell released what he had. And I don't know that he's going to have any more. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
Because of the first autopsy and the investigation still pending. So maybe this is strategic to put more pressure on the investigation. I don't really know, you know, that is in the hands of the investigating agency, like the police and the primary pathologist. Now, remember, this is a second pathologist who's not associated in a state system, right? So a private pathologist can, with the family's permission, release results at any, you know, if they come to an agreement on that. But if you're in a state system like the state of Mississippi, they are then state regulations, the AG or DA's office, all sort of having legal ramifications of releasing something. So I think it's not just whether the doctors want to release it, but it's can they, especially with an ongoing investigation.
Well, and covering crime for years, and of course there's, you know, been circumstances where medical examiners have done bad things, but overall I have found, you know, some police agencies can be corrupt and you find things and they ignore things.
Sure.
But for the most part, and you tell me if I'm wrong, like it seems like medical examiners are pretty unbiased and just scientific about what they find.
I mean, I can speak for myself, and I'm at a conference right now with colleagues. We are all here in the middle of summer studying and trying to learn more.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's probably speaking for most doctors in any field, you know, is that we do it because we care. And I don't make any judgment unless I can point to the part of the body, the data point or points, and saying, this is how I got to the conclusion, you know? Yeah. And that's why I think I am worried about overinterpretation or speculation in this case. You know, we can all sit here and say, oh, was he pushed? Was he drunk? We're just not going to know yet, you know? And so I think it's harmful to the case and, you know, really dangerous to the family, right? There's so many different sort of voices that are not rooted in science or medicine or investigative data, if you will. I think that can be very dangerous, you know? So it came up earlier today in an interview, like whether there's communication. And when I'm the second pathologist between the two doctors, you know, two sets of doctors, I never get sort of, until they release it to the family, let's say the first autopsy report, it's not like I can call them and say, hey, what did you find? You know, so Dr. Mitchell probably signed off on the report, at least at this point, saying, this is what I have. This is what I did. And you can share it if you'd like. You know, obviously that's driven by Mr. Crump. You didn't hear a peep from the primary pathologist, you know, because they are driven very differently.
When someone hires you, though, and you know that they're suspicious and not that they're looking for a certain outcome, but that they, you know, does that ever sway a pathologist?
You know, I can only speak for myself. Yeah. I'm very upfront with what I do and don't find. That's how I practice. So how I speak here is how I testify in court.
Yeah.
It would be how I explain something to a family. So, I mean, investigation is very important, you know, but I would say the chatter, we all learn to sort of tune out speculation and chatter.
Yeah.
Okay. So like if someone tells me, even when the police call me and say, Doc, I have a finding, or I spoke to Mr. Jones and Mr. Jones said he saw someone do drugs or something, you know, like whatever it may be. I need that in writing. I don't just take it sort of a verbal, if you will. I want a formal police report, formal findings written. These days we have body cameras, whatever it may be. And so analogous to that, I think the investigation needs to look at like everybody's cell phones, the kids who are with him, interviewing them, cell phone data, video, because they're partying and stuff. I want that information, so that to me is going to be the real sort of driving force behind concluding what happened. I do worry that if they're not willing to share or can't share for whatever reason, will we have unanswered investigative questions? And then that domino effects into the autopsy conclusions.
In the report, it said another limitation faced by this forensic pathologist was the absence of the anterior internal neck structure, which you mentioned,
right.
tracheal and laryngeal cartilages,
yes.
thyroid horn, and is it hyoid bone?
Hyoid bone, yes.
Were not received with the
Yes.
body. What is that? Is that your whole
Sure.
neck?
The whole neck. So if you the neck is a very protected area. There's a lot going on in here, right? Usually if the reason, I guess, when I first think about the neck, the first thing I think about is strangulation, right? And so you always we very carefully check the neck structures, okay? Then in drowning, sometimes you see foamy secretions in the neck as well. But the biggest thing to first rule out in all these delicate structures is trauma. So, my concern is that with decomposition present, which was very advanced, it sounds like, they may be doing other things to analyze these structures. And so again, that's part of the prerogative of the first pathologist to keep these structures. And so the whole, what we call the neck block, like if, and just they're probably analyzing it to make sure that there's no hidden injury, nothing undiscovered. So obviously if you're ruling out trauma in anybody, I want to look at, the important structures. And so definitely Roger said, or Dr. Mitchell said that that's why it was a limitation, which it is. Sometimes I do police involved autopsies or second autopsies, and that's unfortunately a limitation that I would have too.
So would they have removed the neck because they were thinking maybe drowning?
I mean, removing the neck is standard protocol for
standard.
An autopsy.
Okay.
Standard. Oh yeah, I look at it in everybody.
Okay.
Sort of keeping it and saving it and not sending it to the other doctor or back with the body is sort of where the divide comes in.
Okay. And so why would they save it? Would they send it out to a specialist? Could that be a reason?
I don't know exactly. Like if it's decomposed, sometimes you can put it through formaldehyde to sort of firm it up, then maybe they want to, if there's strangulation, I often x-ray the hyoid bone. Hyoid bone's like this little U-shaped bone. I always say in court, it's sort of like the wishbone of a turkey, delicate U-shaped. You have to pull on it to fracture it. All those small projections, like the thyroid cartilage, voice box, which is the larynx, like the Adam's apple in men, all those areas can be injured, right? If someone's trying to strangle you. So that's why it's, obviously a very important structure. They probably kept it to look at it further, or some doctors just save it in every case. I don't know the practice specifically down there. I'm unfortunately in the Northeast, and I've never practiced down there. So every office, every doctor has a slightly different vibe, if you will. Like I always save the hyoid, a section of tongue, a cross section of the airway, but I don't save the whole thing. So, but some doctors might just say, hey, I want to save the whole thing, and that's their prerogative.
Okay, it's just kind of their prerogative.
Right. And especially in a high-profile case, they may want to.
Right. That makes sense. He also wrote the most significant of the limitations was the inability to directly observe the airway and lungs for water and directly observe the stomach for gastric contents. In addition, the original toxicology results had not been received at the time of this report. So does that mean they took all those organs out? The stomach, the lungs?
So what happens is, at least in my experience, and this is sort of just generalizing now because I don't know, but usually what happens is we take out every organ from the body in an autopsy, okay? And then you weigh the intact organ and then you slice through it to make sure you look at as much of the lung tissue, the heart tissue. Each organ has its own sort of special method of being looked at, but you're not just looking at a lung intact. You're always looking inside. You're not just looking at a liver, you're looking at the inside. Okay. So they probably, separated it from the airways, right? They kept the upper airway, which is part of that neck structure that we talked about. Then they're going to slice through the lung, which is going to release fluid. They're going to open the airway. So again, this is inherent to the second autopsy aspect of it. Then I always collect. So with regards to, those are the lungs, right? Why the lungs would have been opened, and potentially bloody fluid can drain out of the lungs. So you won't really get to assess how much fluid was in the lungs and in the airway. Then you come to the fact that during the autopsy process, you're cutting through blood vessels, right? When you're separating organs, they're connected by blood vessels and other structures. So the toxicology is only good from the first autopsy. There's very specific sites in the body that we take blood samples, okay, because drugs can shift in the body, then decomposition happens. So we try to take, as relatively, if you want to say pure, isolated samples for toxicology. Then part of that toxicology, and in drowning especially, we look at the stomach contents. Okay. So when someone's drowning, sometimes they inhale water. The lungs can be filled with water and extra heavy fluid, right? So that's what he's commenting on. And then the stomach, you can swallow water. Okay. And so the stomach can be filled with water. Now I want to put caveats to this because this was July 4th in Mississippi, or July 4th weekend in Mississippi in the middle of summer. So you can't just assume because there's liquid in his stomach, if there was, that's swallowed water. You could be drinking water, Gatorade, alcoholic beverage. Like, I don't know, so even if it's clear, let's say like water, now is that water from the
Can they
ocean?
test it? Can they tell if it's
We
ocean
don't really
water?
do that because, stomach acids and other things mixed in there. I usually look at it and measure how much like fluid, like sometimes if you have food and water, you can tell how much is water, how much is food, if you will. But it's all sort of an estimation. Regardless, what you're getting at is we're trying to find what we can hang our hat on with drowning. Okay. So drowning can be fluid in the lungs, fluid in the stomach, and fluid in an area called the sinus, the sphenoid sinus up here. Okay. But we know from research that even a body floating in water, even if they didn't drown, can have water up here. Okay. So it can be like, it's not a hallmark of drowning. We know that the body was recovered from water. So that in and of itself is the most important fact. Because if you're not in or near water, how did you drown? Right.
Right.
And then, so it's sort of, I'm looking at it that way, but I have so many questions. It was a party weekend. What's the toxicology say? That has to be also taken with a lot of caution because he's decomposed. And why that's important is the body creates its own alcohol. The bacteria in the body for decomposition creates alcohol. So just having alcohol in the tissues or the blood could be a false positive from decomposition. You can't just assume he was drinking in this advanced state of decomposition if alcohol shows up positive.
Is there any way to tell the difference?
Generally, we look at the eye fluid, but I don't know in this advanced state of decomposition if the eye fluid's still there or not. Then it becomes like a professional judgment call, if you will, because there has been research that report, depending on, again, the severity of decomposition, you can have up to 0.2 blood alcohol in decomposition. So, again, it's going to be a very gray area. It's going to be a point of contention, what's in his system, And then I think, the investigation, sort of the overarching issue, because this is a young, healthy kid. Why did he get in the water? When did he get in the water? He supposedly knew how to swim, at least per Dr. Mitchell's report. So then, why was he incapacitated from swimming, right? Like he couldn't swim back, or why did his friends not notice a grown man in the water? Kids can sometimes be silent drownings, but because they're little, they go under.
Right.
But, he doesn't have any other sort of, because these are boats and stuff. I worry about propeller strikes. Those were ruled out. Did he hit his head on the boat? I don't think so, because there's no skull fractures, but sort of like what's going on with this kid during this missing time, because if you're partying that hard during the day, like other people are around, right? Like, why didn't they notice him? It took 2 days almost to find him. That's, to me, the biggest concern that the autopsy is not going to answer.
Yeah, and he also wrote, I think this is kind of similar to what you were saying. Lastly, in cases where a death has occurred in or around a body of water with suspicion of drowning, it is important to confirm how the person entered the water.
Exactly.
This information is especially important for those deaths of persons who can swim, as is the case with Nolen Wells.
Yeah. Like,
so basically, as the pathologist, that would be very helpful to know. Obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, we always ask the family, could they swim? Right? Like, unfortunately, even in Rhode Island, which is surrounded by water, there are kids definitely that don't learn how to swim, you know, so you could be in a very sad state of affairs. You know, we know about rip currents, although I think this was a pond or a lake. It wasn't the ocean, you know, that would have that kind of current. But I don't know the terrain that well, but, you know, it's just what's going on. It's a sequence of events. Did he say, I'm going to go take a swim? Like, you know, what's happening? Because it's such a jovial weekend, right? It's young, healthy kids. The pictures seem very nice. He's on a boat with his friends. And then this is the tragic outcome. So there's a lot to be answered. And remember, when we talk about death, we talk about cause of death and manner of death, right? Cause would be like, why did he die? The suspected methodology here is drowning, although it hasn't been certified that way. But the manner is under what circumstances that happened, right? And so is it an accident? Is it suicide? Is it homicide? Is it undetermined, meaning we have no idea? It's not going to be natural, because drowning is not, or entering the water is not a natural event, you know. So those manners of death, coming to that conclusion, is driven by the investigation.
Okay. And so the medical examiner is also part of the investigation, right?
It is the autopsy, but we don't have the authority to go interview the friends, or we can call the family and say, did he have medical history? Could he swim? Right.
Yeah.
But the friends that were like associated in the group, looking at cell phones, none of that is under the purview of the medical examiner. That is police, though. That's a legal matter, you know, so we're relying on the police to.
But like for the medical examiner in Mississippi, would they want information from the police that's not public yet about what they're finding out in the investigation?
I'm sure.
Yeah. And that
there's
will help
always
them.
Communication. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm doing any case, it could be a non-suspicious case. I'm still getting a police report, you know, and obviously in a high profile case, they may be keeping things tight to the vest, but they're going to still share it with, I mean, a medical examiner is sort of part of the investigating authority, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can't make a decision on manner without that information.
The doctor here said that there were 7 questions left, and they were, what were the circumstances that led to Nolen Xavier Wells entering the water? We talked about that. What was the body position when found? Well, yeah, we didn't really touch on that. Why would that be important?
Well, generally, I think I saw online when I was researching about the case that he was found sort of face down in the water. You know, you just want to know, because, you know, I want to know where he entered and then where he was found, right? Like, depending on currents and movement and whatnot, the body doesn't have to be found in the same place where he entered the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and I'm just saying very generally, there can be, even rivers have, you know, a stream, a current that can carry the body from one place to another. Was he, you know, drifting to an area less visible to his friends, you know, and that's really important. Where was he found? How was he found? So it's usually face down is a very typical drowning position.
And then the other ones were, was there water in the airway? We talked about that. Is there any evidence of injuries to the interior neck structure? We've talked about that.
Yep.
Is there any evidence of intracranial hemorrhage?
Yep.
We basically,
that's what I talked about the bleeding in and around the brain.
What was the composition of the stomach contents? You explained why that would be important, and what are the toxicology report findings? Obviously, we know why those would be important. The fact that he put the 7 questions in that report, though, is that unusual or is that typical?
I think everybody's style is different, you know, but I think because he's not coming to a clear conclusion, right? You know, i.e. he has an undetermined cause, undetermined manner at the time of the publishing. I think what he's doing in a way is saying, hey, these are the limitations. This is the information I would need to make a more solid conclusion on this case. And it's not just a physical exam of a body that leads us to those.
All right, Doug.
Very good. Very informative she was.
Yes, she was. She was good. Sorry, guys, about the length, but it was important to get all that stuff in there. So, the one thing that stuck out at me too was the fact that when she was saying about the toxicology report, the first person who does it really is going to get more of the information, and that's obviously going to be the state.
That explains why on the second one it says toxicology not performed.
Right. Well, it's just the idea that there's a lot of even if they did provide certain body parts, even if they provided certain body parts, I'm not sure some of it, as she put it, would be tainted. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be, there would be some, whether it was because of the situation or was it because of the movement of, the actual, autopsy or whatnot. So there's a lot of things in there. I mean, I learned a lot of this stuff, man. This is like, it was shocking to me, but it didn't make sense. What didn't make sense, and I'll just be frank and honest, was the fact if I now bar me from being, I'm not an attorney either, and I don't want to be an attorney, as that commercial would say. But the idea is that to know that Crump brought this out, knowing very well, yeah, she said, well, it could have tried to force their hand, but it also made it look like you have nothing, because you have nothing, because the main thing you needed, you don't have. So I'm not sure how would it came out. But then again, they know what they're doing, I guess. So, who am I to argue that? But what's your take on all that?
I think that might be exactly why the first kept the parts that they kept, so that things couldn't come out before the official report came out.
You're exactly right. I agree.
And he can't finish his report until toxicology comes in. So if we keep the brain and we keep the throat, then they're not going to be able to make a determination one way or another. Because we've seen what Trump did. They were able to come out and give the findings. You don't want that to happen before the official report comes out. It needed to come out afterwards. And I think it was a smart move. And also, if it needed to have further testing done, they're on a time limit. They're trying to get this kid through the first autopsy, the second autopsy, that the family can bury him. So they don't want to keep him for weeks or months before turning it over. That's just going to prolong the process for the family. So they could have done it double. Like, we just keep these parts, we give it over so Nolen can be buried, and we'll hash it all out later. Yep. And I think that was the professional decision and probably the best decision.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely explains a lot. It definitely explains a lot as to because it wasn't like the guy who did the independent autopsy, like he wasn't like very knowledgeable. The guy was a very sharp individual, but because he was sharp, that's probably why he said, "Can't tell you anymore. I don't have the materials that I need to be able to do what I do," and that speaks volume, no doubt. This is why I always say that this is what causes that friction. You know what I mean? This is what causes that. You'll have some that say they were trying to hide something. You'll have some that say, no, they just, this is how they do things. And you're still going to have that doubt in people's mind, in my opinion. You're always going to have that doubt, especially now since this was explained as thorough as it was. But that's just my opinion anyway.
I thought it was great.
I thought she did a wonderful job. I mean, I don't know that lingo, but I tell you what, I could sure hell use common sense to kind of process that out. Without a doubt. Mannix, Marianne, hello, Chris. Tusi, hi, Chris. Yeah, Chris, I don't know if he's still in here watching or if he's still eating or if he changed his meal to spaghetti. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Spaghetti with a lot of meatballs and sauce. That's a very possibility. Hit the like and subscribe, Mannix. And keep the organs to protect the integrity of evidence in possible future court cases. Well said. Like I said, I didn't want to play this too long, but I think it was very important because, man, I tell you, just hearing that was an eye opener. And then, of course, like I told you before, the fact that Cajun Navy came out and said, we never said that about the body being fully clothed. Man, that does hurt. That's like a sting, man, because now it's like, why are you putting this out there like that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just does the family no justice. He says, Chris just passed me on his e-bike. Is he out of or does he still have sandwiches? Oh Lord.
Listen, if the ME did find that there was maybe TBI or concussion, if you take them pre-existing conditions and mix them with alcohol and mix them with riptides, it could explain how an accidental drowning could happen.
Absolutely.
It would just
Without a doubt.
intensify the,
Without a doubt. I think he was going like 21 miles an hour. Or he could have been like Dad's Gone Live and been hauling butt about 35, 40 miles an hour. Oh, Lord. Just as long as he doesn't hit a rock and fall off his e-bike, he's going to be okay. Otherwise, he's going to be crying for mommy. No doubt about it. So, yeah, no, man, that was good. I honestly gained a lot of knowledge there, without a doubt.
Absolutely. She explained
I don't know what, like I said, for me, I'm looking at the angle. It's almost like why even do I know that once again it's peace of mind, and maybe they're able to give peace of mind to the victim's family. I get all that. But it just, golly, it seems like if the state really wanted to hold back, especially like they did here, that's totally acceptable because they can do that. It's evidence. It's tagged and bagged. You can't just shuffle that everywhere because then you lose the chain of custody. And once you lose the chain of custody, that's not a good thing either. So yeah, that was interesting. What do you guys think? Was it good? Was it informative? Did it make you want to go have some spaghetti and noodles? Tell me.
no spaghetti.
How about, what do you call those, spaghettios?
None of them either.
Oh, oh my Lord. Yeah, no. I thought Chris was going to say, hey, let me in. I want to play. Boss, they're playing. Mannix, Deb, you can look up past currents at NOAA. There was a fast current. That's what they said. And riptides at Horn Island on July 4th. Yeah, I remember them saying that, talking about that. Barney, did you put training wheels on there for Chris, or did he add them? Henny, no, not me. Deb, just watch. It's going to be undetermined. I can see that. I can honestly see that. Tarek, laughing out loud. DD, spaghetti with lots of meatballs. Al, Deb, I suspect that will probably be the case also. I mean, they're going to say, obviously, the top of it's going to be, the root is going to be the drowning. That's no doubt. It's the underlining, and that's usually going to be determined by the toxicology if they find, how much alcohol, how much he was inebriated, how much maybe if he had other chemicals in his body, that's where I think everything's going to start shifting to a different narrative, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'll be right back. Have a visitor, 5 minutes. You got it, Doug. L. Barney. L. Okay, no problem, Doug. So was it worth it? I mean, did you guys get anything out of it other than it was kind of messy and gross? Or kind of everything I think we pretty much talked about, everything that we were talking about. That was interesting. Any more questions? Any questions? Manic says, Doug, Men in Black are visiting. Too much for me. I get it, Annie. It was, look, if I was eating, I would have, other than eating dots, that's what I was munching on, dots. But other than eating that, if I was eating, yeah, I wouldn't be able to eat. I would have stopped a long time ago. No, officer, I wasn't speeding. The bike only goes 29 miles per hour. Hell, I like the lady. She seemed to understand what she was talking about. Very detailed. Well said, Al, no doubt. AJ, I think the doctor was great. Great explanations, in my opinion. I mean, I think anybody who had common sense would be able to decipher exactly what she was saying. May not be able to get the lingo just right as far as, the names of all these different, bones and whatnot and tissue and everything. But as far as the idea, what her point was, I think she did it really well. Deb, I really don't think so with Drug. I think he's the one who sounded sane and wanted his phone. Very well said, Deb. That is very well said. Tushi, maybe somebody spiked his drink. We will find out what's in that system without a doubt. Good point. Barney, Tarek, the video you played was very informative from a medical examiner's aspect. Absolutely. I mean, it made sense, though. Everything, how they broke it down, or, some people would say how they dummied it down. Either or, it made sense to me. I mean, at least what they were saying as far as the basics made sense to me. Third interview with Tatum really is telling. Okay, let me see if I can find that. You guys want to listen to that one? The third interview with Tatum? I haven't even watched it, so it'll be new. Let me go ahead and bring it up here. Okay, let's see, not finding it. So let me do this. Let me go here and click on. All right. Okay, part 3. I think this is the part. All right, StreamYard. Share screen. All right. Sure.
was out there. Nolen rode out on the Triton, and then we had a Palm Beach, 18 Palm Beach. There was 4 guys on that. The rest of the group, which was ranged from maybe 10 to 15 or 16 people on my buddy's tide line.
Yeah, so y'all pretty much having a good time. And then you guys get ready to leave prematurely.
Right.
And like, what? Explain that, because you guys got there around 10.
Yeah.
It's now 4:30.
Right.
People are still out there partying and
Right.
they're having a good time, but something happened to where it necessitated you guys to get the boat up and running. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I had a girl come up to me and say, "Hey, your brother just got in a fight." And obviously I have a younger brother, and that's who she was talking about. And I was freaked out. So I walked over to the beach, and I didn't walk over. I ran over. I made a beeline. I didn't talk to anybody. Put my drink down and walked over there. And my brother was kind of angry, and there was a lot going on. But someone was getting pulled away. I don't know who it was. And my brother was like, "Oh, I just got in a fight, and this guy punched me in the face," and I punched him right back. And then went to the ground, and my brother put him in an arm bar. And
Was Nolen involved in any of this?
Absolutely not. When I was over there, it was a bunch of younger guys like my brother's age, and I mean, Nolen. I never saw Nolen over there.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And okay, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
So you get ready to go. There's an issue with the boat.
Okay, yeah.
And this is
Well,
what
this led up to that. That's what I was saying.
So the fight happened with your brother, or a little scuffle. I'm assuming that it was cleared up.
You're right.
You got your brother out of that situation, and then how did?
Okay, so real quick, I just want to point out, he kind of stumbles over, lost a train of thought. Usually that's because you're trying to regurgitate what you went over. And you see how interviewer had to go ahead and get him back on track and start filling in the narrative and try to get him back on track to what he needs to say. Just saying. Maybe you can't say much until investigating is complete. Interesting. You follow what I'm saying? He lost train of thought. He had lost train of thought. And yes, exactly, Mannix. That's exactly what's happening. He lost train of thought. And now, literally, he's trying to get him back focused because he's trying to regurgitate it. When you try to regurgitate a well-scripted thing from memory, you're always going to probably make a mistake. Usually you'll make a mistake. And sometimes because you're trying to figure out, okay, where was I? And next thing you know, he has to get him back in line, get him back to that. That's very telling, folks. That is very, very telling. I just wanted to point that out to everybody.
So was Warren the guy in the photo running?
Nolen was. It was. So this one's the third part, and it was Warren that was running. Because
the guy in the photo running. Remember in the background, the guy running?
Yes.
But then he also says that Nolen wasn't there, but I mean, he was running right towards Nolen.
Well, he said Nolen wasn't there. He just said
so
it.
That wasn't Nolen in the picture then?
According to him, that wasn't.
Okay.
He just said that now in the third. I mean, I think he just missed it, but that's exactly what he said. He said,
"No, I seen it. I was just trying to."
All right, here we go.
Once you find out that this boat is sinking.
Well, I walk back over, and like we're probably around each other for a little bit. I mean, I wasn't thinking anything about it. I told my brother, I pulled my brother off the beach, and I was just like, "Listen, get in the water, hang out with us, calm down." I mean, he was calm, but I didn't want anything else to happen, And so once I got back over the boat, I got on the Triton, and the Triton had probably about 6 inches of water up to the transom. And I was freaked out because I'm good friends with Wyatt, and that was his boat. And, no water's coming out, no access water's coming out. And, it was a big issue because I think the reason was because there were so many people getting on and off the boat. And at some point the boat was very, very crowded, and there was just a lot of people on. So that it drags water in. And eventually I think over time we were out there for a couple hours. The boat just started filling up with water. So I popped the starboard side hatch, and the battery was completely underwater.
Without a doubt,
and
AJ.
So the motor wouldn't trim down.
Without a doubt.
I mean, my buddy would go to trim it down from the console, and it'd trim down, and then it'd come right back up. And so Wyatt's trying to throw a rear anchor, so we're caught, and he's, yelling at people. Everybody's kind of freaking out. And eventually I'm like yelling at other people, trying to tell them, calm down. Like, the boat could possibly sink, and I'm not paying attention to everyone around me. I was paying attention to my buddy's boat. And that's what all my other friends that were on that boat were doing, trying to solve the problem.
So you're on the boat now. The water is getting up to the point where the boat may be disabled to where you couldn't get it out.
Correct.
From Horn
Correct.
Island. So what happens after that?
Wyatt jumps in the water, tries to throw a rear anchor, and my buddy Meyer, you're sitting looking, trying to pull trash out the bilge. And the bilge is basically a pump that pulls the excess water out the boat. So the bilge was failing to work. So any excess water was just sitting in the boat. It wasn't getting pumped out. And I looked over the gunnel, and I looked at the release hole for the bilge, and it was even with the water. So, I mean, we're all freaking out. All of our, we're not focused on anything else other than the boat. Well, then eventually my buddy Bart on the tide line is like, I'm going to pull y'all out to where we're out of all this, all this chaos. Cause we left at 4:30 and there were still just as many people there, if not more than when we got there. I mean, probably around the same amount. I mean, it was crazy. Like there was a lot of people. And, eventually Bart pulls us out. We left at 4:30, but we really weren't pulled out away from everybody. We were probably about a quarter mile out, and we had the towing strap pulled from, Bart's port side cleat or starboard side cleat, and he was on our starboard side bow. And so it was rubbing on his power pole. So Bart turned around, pulled up next to our boat, and we were just trying to get it situated. So that's when Wyatt called Cito. And Wyatt was like, calls him, because the cell service isn't great at the island, but once you can use your phone, but stuff might not just send. And it's not great. You got maybe one bar and it won't work that well. But once you get a little off the island, you have cell coverage. And even on the island, like I called my mom when we were on the island, it was fine. Like we had enough cell coverage to make a phone call or shoot a text over, but you don't have enough cell coverage to like send a picture, for example. So Wyatt.
So I want to go back.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to touch on that real quick, because the phone thing came up at some point.
Uh-huh.
And so was it when you guys got off the boat?
Yeah.
Were people taking their phones off the boat, or is that not typical? Because I know that Nolen's phone was left on the boat,
right?
Even though after you guys had left. So can you explain that? Because I think people need to understand this a little clearer.
Yeah.
Was it typical for people to have their phones left on boats, or did they keep their phones in the water? Or?
Yeah. Everybody kind of goes out to the island to get away from, their phones and everything else. I know I got on the boat to get away from, just the regular world. And no, when you're waist deep in water, no one's carrying their phone in their hand. Especially at Horn Island, the water has been very, very murky because of the rain. And when it's just very risky. If you're gonna have your phone in the water, some people might for a couple minutes and like maybe taking some pictures of each other. I know a lot of girls like to take pictures in the water at Horn Island. Guys do too. Like people like to take pictures, and but a lot of the pictures you see are on the boat for a reason. And so, no, if someone is on their phone in the water, they're using it real quick and then putting it right back on the boat. We were all waist deep in water. No one's sitting there scrolling on their phone. I never saw that once. And I've never seen that once. And I've been out the Highland my whole life. That's just not something people do. People aren't on their phones. And everybody has their phone, yes, but it's always on the boat. No one's getting off the boat with their phone. So.
And so you guys get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah.
And then where's Nolen in this situation?
Well, Nolen was, the last time I saw Nolen was 3:00, and Nolen was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie, Katie. And Katie, Nolen was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolen, and Nolen was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy. I was like just joking with him. And but anyway, Nolen, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving, obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out.
Okay, so you see where he's talking about, and this is just the policing kicking in for me, so just bear with me. Do you see when he talks about, he asked him about the phone, and can you explain that? And he said, yeah, he said everybody always leaves their phones on the boats. Well, is everybody going to leave their phone on the boat that could be sinking? Or do you think people were like, God dang, I better get my phone off the boat? Just throwing that as a question, I'm going to get my phone before it sinks with the boat. Or no one really cares about their phone. We're talking about young adults here. And then on the second thing on this, where he talks about, could you explain the phone? I think he's trying to ask him about explain how Nolen's phone was there, or like what was the issue with the phone, and didn't really touch a whole lot. Just said, yeah, no one's on their phones ever. He went back to what he stated earlier. No one went ahead and was on their phone. I didn't see anybody on their phone. I just find that very odd. You know what I'm saying? I find that odd because I just don't see young people not wanting to get their phone, especially if they think the boat is going to sink. Even so, not a big deal. We can excuse that. But then he talks about, the interviewer asked him about, tell me about the phone, about like Nolen's phone specifically. But he doesn't really shift there. He goes to, yeah, this was happening. Nolen was cradling the girl, Katie. You know who Katie? You know Katie. Well, how would he know Katie? He wasn't there. Okay, he wasn't there. How did Mr. Tatum know Katie? Really? He wasn't there. He says, you Katie. He was cradling a girl. Katie. You know Katie. How the hell does he know Katie? Just a little thing I'm trying to point out here. But he never gets into the conversation about Nolen's phone. Who ended up with it? Who took it? Who got it? Who had it? Did you have it? None of that is said why he ended up with this phone, other than what? People just leave their phones on the boat. They'll get them later. What does that mean? Does that mean that somebody will go into the house and get them? You follow what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense. The last thing I will say is when he's talking, and he's talking about this whole idea of Nolen, that's with Katie, he makes a point to say, like he's thinking, right? And he says, no, and he kind of like, I don't want to say stutters, but kind of like he doesn't know how to say it. But he says, no one's going to get left behind. No one's going to get left behind. It's obvious. It's obvious no one's going to get left behind. When a person tries to emphasize a certain thing when they're being interviewed and they're trying to emphasize a certain point, you hear these key words of obvious. I'm telling you the truth. This was emphatically the way it happened. There's key words that people use to try to make their point like they want you to know what they're saying. They want you to know, oh, by no way means was anybody going to leave him behind. It's obvious. You know that. Really? Because the person is, did Nolen know that? You understand what I'm saying? In my opinion, they were taking photos, and when they looked back at the photos, they scrolled too far and saw something very possible. April, he brings Katie up a lot. He does. Tarek, L1, I think he knows more than he's telling. You got to read that body language. You got to read what he's saying, how he's saying it, how he's emphasizing certain points, because that's what you do. When you want to get your point across, you want to hit right on the dot. You want to make sure they know that you said it, that you said that, it's obvious no one's going to leave behind. You know that. No, I really don't know that. That's why I'm asking you, Spo very well could be, hence all of that stuff deleted from Nolen's phone that day too. Maybe there were pictures on his phone. Man, it seems deceptive, very, very deceptive, without a doubt. Like he wants to make sure everybody knows that never crossed his mind. No way was anybody going to leave him behind. No one's getting left behind. Really? Somebody got left behind. And then he made the comment, what'd he say? He chose to go ahead and stay on that island. Remember that? He just said that. He chose to go ahead and stay on the island. Did he? Or did he not have a choice? I'm not sure how he knows that he chose that, because that's not what we're hearing from the girl. Even though earlier on the first episode, he said that the girl knew that. She confirmed that. No, she didn't. She said that he went back to the boat. Not that he was staying with her. Tushy, not even upset talking about Nolen. Barney, expert, didn't ask the right question. Who, what, when, where, and why? Without a doubt, Barney. Tarek, Tushy, exactly what I'm thinking too. Deb, he's full of it. He has an answer for everything. First, he doesn't know what's going on. Doesn't know where everybody's at. He's over here screaming orders. Do this. You need to do that, because they're trying to save the boat from sinking. And then he says, where's Nolen at this? Oh, yeah. About 3 o'clock, that was the last time I saw him. And at 3 o'clock, he was cradling a girl. Katie. You know Katie. No, I don't know Katie. Tushy, not at all. Marianne, if they were going to be in the water, I would leave my phone on the boat too. Even when it's sinking. Spo, yep, somebody's sister, cousin, etc. He's a handsome young man. DD, you can get a bod language expert on. That would be so awesome. I will try, but I can't promise anything, because it's just common sense, folks. For me, it's common sense, because I've done this kind of work before. I've taken classes for that before. Understanding deceptiveness, understanding interrogations, interviews and interrogations. That's what it's called. And that's exactly what I see, in my opinion. But I'll see what I can do. Next, my brother is a windsurfer. He has his phone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on his board. Derek, they do make waterproof cases for phones, I think. And I think they have now like bags or something that are waterproof. Annie, Bruno, who the hell says cradling? Someone who couldn't think of what he wanted to say, and that first thing came in his mind, cradling. I'm old and I wouldn't say that. What do you think, Doug? Tell me what you think, my friend.
I think he's given broad answers to specific questions, probably based on legal advice.
Yeah. Almost like it was all regurgitated. He's regurgitating everything he's thinking in his head on how this was supposed to go. The conversation.
Whether it's deceptive or truthful, I can't tell, but I think his answers are because of his legal advice. They probably told him, I don't want you doing this interview. And he's like, no, I'm doing the interview. But he's probably directed by his legal team to not speak about this way or that way, or keep it broad and not specific.
Okay, so I got a question to ask you, Doug, and the chat. Okay, this is a very serious question. You got to think about it. Okay.
Okay.
The guy, the interviewer, did you guys notice he looked to his right when he was talking to him, and then he turned his head and he looked to his right? Do you think the attorney was in there sitting on the corner?
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. No doubt
Absolutely.
about it. And he looked
only
over
way-
there almost
As
like
your lawyer, I'm letting you do this interview as if I'm in the room with you.
Exactly. Because here's the thing. I mean, we can't prove that per se, but I tell you what, I would have put dollar to donuts that their attorney was in that corner because something caught his attention, the interviewer, where he turned his head to the right. Did you guys see that, or do I need to play it again?
I mean, I can't see the interview. I only see I only see.
Okay. All right, here you go. Here you go. Let me go back in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah. I know it wasn't that far back. Let's see. What about there? Let me see. What about there?
Be there and ask, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolen was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and my buddy yelled for Nolen, get on the boat. We're leaving. The boat's having issues. And
taking their phones off the boat, or is that not typical? Because I know that Nolen's phone was left on the boat,
right?
Even though after you guys had left. So can you explain that? Because I think people need to understand this a little clearer.
Yeah.
Was it typical for people to have their phones left on boats, or did they keep their phones in the water?
Yeah. I mean, everybody kind of goes out to the island to get away from, their phones and everything else. I know I got on the boat to get away from, just the regular world. And no, when you're waist deep in water, no one's carrying their phone in their hand, especially at Horn Island. The water has been very, very murky because of the rain. And
if you live anywhere here on the map, we can get you a brand new heating and air conditioning system. It's a system.
It's just very risky. If you're gonna have your phone in the water, some people might for a couple minutes and like maybe taking some pictures of each other. I know a lot of girls like to take pictures in the water at Horn Island. Guys do too. Like people like to take pictures, and but a lot of the pictures you see are on the boat for a reason. And so, no, I mean, if someone is on their phone in the water, they're using it real quick and then putting it right back on the boat. We were all waist deep in water. No one's sitting there scrolling on their phone. I never saw that once, and I've never seen that once. And I've been out the Highland my whole life. I mean, that's just not something people do. People aren't on their phones, and everybody has their phone, yes, but it's always on the boat. No one's getting off the boat with their phone. So,
and so you guys get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah.
And then where's Nolen in this situation?
Well, the last time I saw Nolen was 3:00, and Nolen was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie, Katie. And Katie, Nolen was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolen, and Nolen was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy. I was like just joking with him. And but anyway, Nolen, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving, obviously no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolen was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and my buddy yelled for Nolen, get on the boat. We're leaving. The boat's having issues. And like, no, he didn't say that, but he was panicking. Nolen, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolen said, no, I'm staying out here. I'm going to ride in with somebody else. And it's not uncommon to hear, but it's not like my buddy asked him one time. My buddy asked Nolen multiple times to get on the boat. Nolen, get on the boat. Get on the boat. We're leaving. If you're coming, you got to come now. And Nolen made a decision to stay out on the island. And like he said, how
many people heard that? Were there
at least
just a
5
few,
everyone that was on our boat right there, because the Palm Beach had already left. My buddy went ahead and went home on the Palm Beach, and 3 guys on the way back. And Nolen wasn't the only person to ride out there with us and in with somebody else. I mean, we had multiple people in our group that rode out with us and rode in on someone else's boat. And that, like I said, that's not an uncommon thing to do. I mean, a lot of people do that. I could name probably 50 people out there that day that ran out with somebody and ran back in with somebody else. So, I mean, it's not like it's an uncommon thing, but it's not like we just left him there or my friends just left him there. Nolen made a decision to stay on the island after my friends asked him multiple times and told him to get on the boat, and he decided to stay.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody that she heard people yelling
correct
for Nolen to get on it. Is that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, because she was obviously seen with Nolen the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, this is the last time I saw him, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolen was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat. And she was right there to see that Nolen decided not to.
Yeah. So you guys get in the boat, you start to get towed in, and you make it back. Now explain how did you get to the point where you were concerned about Nolen? Because obviously you said, hey, Nolen, y'all need to, or somebody, not
when
you,
did I get
but
to that point?
You guys had made mention Nolen needed to get on a boat.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
You guys get back to wherever you're going.
Right.
Explain that. Did you guys go back to somebody's house, or you guys like what happened there? And then when did you feel like, well, wait a minute, where's Nolen?
Right. Okay. Well, running in was very chaotic. I mean, Nolen chose to stay on the island, so my focus wasn't on anything else other than the boat, because if the boat doesn't get in, then no one gets in. I don't want to sink out there on my buddy's boat, and no one does. But my buddy Wyatt jumped out and pulled the plug on the boat once we kind of got out there, because he got the motor to trim down. And the motor trimmed down. My buddy Wyatt pulled the plug, and we planed off. We moved all the weight to the front of the boat so we could plane off. And eventually we planed off, and the boat was running. So when you're planed off and you have water in the boat and you're hauling, we're going pretty fast. We're going probably 40, 42 miles an hour. And so all that excess water that was built up in the boat is coming out of the boat. So, I mean, that's what we had to do. So we ran into Fort Bayou, and we didn't just run straight to my buddy's grandparents' house. We ran into Fort Bayou. A couple of us jumped in the water, and Wyatt, the whole reason for the stop was so Wyatt could hop in and put the plug back in the boat. So then after that, we went and docked it, and I went back to my buddy's house, and we ate and, napped for a little bit. It was a long day at the island, so, we were all tired. And eventually we go over to, a girlfriend of mine. She was having people over for 4th of July. We were doing fireworks and stuff. So we all went over there to swim and, hang out. And
this infamous picture that I've seen online of Nolen in the water in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Where is this picture associated with? Because you said you guys went back to swim. Nolen wasn't with you.
Yeah.
So where is this picture at? What's the context around the picture that's been floating?
That picture is taken on June 27th, a week before the 4th of July. We all went to a friend of ours in Pass Christian. We have a lot of friends from Bay St. Louis, Pass Christian. We all went over there to hang out, and
And Nolen was in that picture.
Nolen was in that picture, and if you look in the picture, my arm is around Nolen in that picture. And I mean, that was a week before the 4th of July, so that picture is not associated within even the same. I mean, that was like a week before. So, yeah.
So you guys are now at swimming and having a good time at a lady friend's house.
Right. I never got to the pool. I talked to her dad for a while,
Okay.
and I mean, all my friends were downstairs. I went upstairs, talked to her dad. We were talking about boats and stuff, and I've been with my friends all day. I was just talking to everybody, but
So you talked to the young lady's dad, and then how long was it before you realized, or you guys realized that, well, where's Nolen at?
I mean, I went back downstairs, and all my friends were just hanging out, and my buddy Wyatt had addressed, talking about Nolen, and I was like, well, where is Nolen? Have y'all heard from him? And he was like, no, we haven't. And I was like, okay, well, it's a little concerning. Like, I mean, I'm not freaking out or anything, but like, I'm trying to find out where Nolen is. So I texted Javon, and I was like, hey, and also a couple other buddies that I had at the island. I was like, hey, have y'all seen Nolen? Did he ride in with y'all? And all the buddies were like, no. Well, I texted Javon, and I was like, hey, can you send me Miss Christine's number? Because I haven't heard from Nolen. And if she hasn't heard from Nolen, then I'm calling the Coast Guard. And so eventually Javon sends me her number.
Who is her? That's
Miss Christine.
Miss Christine is
Nolen's mom.
Nolen's mom. Okay.
Yeah. And I walked down to the dock because, I mean, there was a lot of people at Ava. It's not a lot, but, there was probably 15 of our friends there. And I was just like, walked down to the dock with a couple of my buddies, and I got on the phone. I called Miss Christine, called her the first time. She didn't answer. I called her a second time, and I got on the phone with her, and I asked her if she had heard from Nolen. She said no. And I said, all right, well, don't freak out. I'm going to call the Coast Guard. And this was at about 11 o'clock.
So what's your intent in calling the Coast Guard, right? Because right now, Nolen could be with a chick. He could be with somebody else.
Right.
He could have gone back with somebody else. What made you concerned enough that you felt like you couldn't weigh it out anymore? You had to call the Coast Guard.
Well, I mean, like I said, my friends and I have been on the water our whole life. Stuff happens. People die all the time. I know people that have died out there. And, it's a fun place to be, but it's also a very, very dangerous place to be if you're not handling it right. And Nolen, so I hadn't heard from him. And obviously, I'm thinking I'd way rather be safe than sorry. I mean, I would rather call the Coast Guard 100 times and lose my mind over it, and my buddy be okay, than, not, and me not know where he is and him not be okay. And so I called the Coast Guard, and I talked to them on the phone for like 20 minutes, gave him a description, what Nolen was wearing, the last place we were at, the last time I saw him, who were we with, what boat we were on, the conditions of the water, just a summary. And I called Miss Christine back after, and I talked to her, and I said, I got in contact with the Coast Guard. I'm not sure who she called or, what she did, but I think she said she was going to make a couple phone calls to either DMR or Jackson County Sheriff's Office. And I was thinking worst case scenario. Like, I would way rather be safe than sorry about this,
Yeah, so you called. So it seems like you called.
What do y'all think? What do you all think? Lawyer up and being unaccompanied is different than lawyering up and remaining cooperative. I know I would have gotten a lawyer. Uncooperative. Manax, I agree, because this can absolutely be used as evidence as many times as he has contradicted himself and his body language, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Well said, L. I don't know, Spo, because multiple. Let me go back to the top. I want to make sure I go back and read from. Okay, let's see. All right, let's see. Good point, Doug. How can he see what thousands of people are doing? Good point, Doug. Cradling again, says Tarek. Brian Enton is in LA covering the D4D case. Exactly, Spo. Doug, in my opinion, under the circumstances, this 18-year-old is very calm and kept great composure. Ole to come with no emotion. Mannix, they left him there. If he was doing these interviews to create a narrative that he knows nothing about what happened to Nolen, this isn't helping him, in my opinion. Mannix, not too sad about Nolan, in my opinion. Barney, Palm Beach boat, something daddy boat. Little daddy. Little daddy. Or Lil Daddy. LIL. I disagree to this 100%. Helping him. He lawyered up, but still being cooperative. We see why radio silence, we see what radio silence does. L, to the public, it isn't helping him, Doug, was what I meant, but that's my opinion. Mannix, 42 miles per hour is the legal speed limit. Marianne, I agree, Doug. It would look very bad if he didn't talk at all. Wow, look who he chose to talk to. I'm not sure it did him any justice, in all honesty. And I'm going for all the 3 episodes, the 1, 2, and 3. I didn't think it did him any justice whatsoever. If anything, I think it hurt him more than it helped him by far, without a doubt. So why lawyer up, Marianne? But no matter what he says, people are not going to agree specifically if they make up their mind on who they think is responsible for the crime. But see, that's the thing. I personally don't know who did anything or if he did, become accidental and unalive himself by accident. I'm going with just not only what has happened and the phones and the materials that belong to Nolen, where they were at, and the way he's explaining everything, it doesn't sound like it's coming across as genuine. It seems like it's coming across rehearsed. Just my opinion. Mannix, this interview will come back to bite him later. I think it will. If it's even a crime. Spole, yes, Mannix. L, I don't know, Spole, because multiple of them did allegedly. If they had nothing to do with this disappearance or didn't feel responsible, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, everybody to close their social medias, shut him down, put him on private, get rid of him. And I'm talking from the judge all the way down, lawyer up right away. I mean, once again, it just asks the question. I mean, if it was an accident or you really didn't know, you would just say, I really don't know. I don't know what happened. We left on this time, and that's all I can tell you. We left here. We asked Nolan to come. He didn't want to come. Said he was going to stay with the girl. Okay, so we left. I'm not sure what the lawyering up, because here's the thing. If you didn't do anything, you're not leaving any evidence on anyone, right? If you didn't do anything, you're not incriminating yourself because you haven't done anything. So then why do you lawyer up? L. Mannix, I agree, because this can absolutely be used as evidence as many times he has contradicted himself and his body language. Mannix, L. This will absolutely be used as evidence if it gets that far, and they can bring in experts. They have experts. They do have them. Mannix, Doug, I respect your opinion very much. Chris, DD, send me the link. All right, Chris. Oh, my goodness. There you go, Chris. Barney changed his details too often. To see why doesn't he think Nolen was having a good time at the lake. Why call the Coast Guard? That seems strange. Well, he kind of hesitated when he asked, well, what made you want to call the Coast Guard? And it was like, well, and he had to think about it for a little bit. And then he came out and said, well, I'd rather be safe than sorry, or 100 times, or something to that effect. Like he knew something happened to him. I don't want to laugh, Chris.
Unbelievable.
You see, I just
Unbelievable.
having a good time. Chris wants link. Guy gave it to him.
No, he didn't.
The fight the brother had, and the brother had the keys.
I had to break in here.
Maddox, Miss Barney, yes indeed. April, good point. Devil Dog, there's the link. Annie, I did mean to put PG and I couldn't take it out. L, Chris, Tarek, hi Chris. Okay, go ahead. What you got, Chris?
Nothing.
Oh my God.
I just stopped in to say no. Hello, everybody in the chat. I have a question. I
might have an answer.
You better have an answer. So we don't have to rewind it, but what I'm saying is if we were to rewind that and come to the part where they were talking about Katie. Now, correct me if I'm incorrect, because I'm not sure.
Okay.
When we first heard about this, is this Katie somebody that Nolen just didn't know, or was it somebody that he just met that nobody knew?
From what the beginning, the word is that no one knew Katie, and that he met this girl on the island.
Okay.
None of them knew her. That even Nolen didn't know who it was. He just kind of liked her.
Okay.
That's
now, let me stop you. Let me stop you there.
Okay.
Now, if we were to rewind this, the part where he was talking about Katie,
right?
If you were listening, what did he say about Katie when he said he was headed towards the boat the last time she saw him? And then from there on, nothing, right?
Right.
But then when he brought up, we were texting, and he said that he texted Katie to ask her if she has seen Nolen, and then he also said that other people started texting Katie. Well, how would everybody have her phone number if they just met her?
It's a good point.
Did you hear that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I did hear that.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You guys
When did he say that about? When?
In this interview right here.
I know, but like how far back? Do you remember?
When they were talking about the last time that Katie saw him, like when they were yelling for him to come on the boat.
Oh, okay. During that time?
And then a little bit after that, just a little bit, when he said, my other friends were texting her too. And I said, wait a minute, you guys didn't know her. So how would everybody already have her phone number?
That's true. I'm trying to find it because I can't believe I missed that.
Well, wait a minute. Where's
I may have to. Right. Okay. Well, running in was very chaotic. I mean, Nolen chose to stay on the island, so my focus wasn't on anything else other than the boat, because if the boat doesn't get in, then no one gets in. I don't want to sneak out there on my buddy's boat, and no one does. But my buddy Wyatt jumped out and pulled the plug on the boat once we kind of got out there, because he got the motor to trim down, and the motor trimmed down. My buddy Wyatt pulled the plug.
I think it's after this.
Planed
So
off.
let it
We
run
moved all the way to the front of the boat so we could plane off.
I think.
And eventually we planed off. The boat was running.
Okay.
So when
I don't know. Freeze.
And
I don't know.
The next day, everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, because she was obviously sitting with Nolen the whole day at the island.
Yeah.
Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day. I said, that's not an uncommon thing to do,
No shit.
I'm going to ride in with
you
somebody
don't know
else.
her.
And it's not uncommon
I didn't
here,
catch that.
But
Good
It's
catch.
not like my buddy.
How does
asked me one
everybody
time.
have
My buddy
her
asked
number?
Nolan
Doug, are you
multiple
here?
times to get on the boat.
Yeah.
Nolan, get on the boat. Get on the
I'm
boat. We're
thinking
leaving. If
Snapchat.
you're coming, you gotta come now.
Then it's easy to find somebody on
Nolan made a
Snapchat.
decision to stay out on the island.
Say that
And like
again?
he said, you know,
Snapchat.
How many people heard that?
Yeah, but how would everybody
At
have her
least
Snapchat?
five.
I mean,
They don't know
everyone
each
that was
other.
on our boat
Because
right
they were
there, 'cause
friends
the
with Nolan
beach
and
had already
followed
left.
her
My
on
buddy
Snap.
went ahead and went home
It
on the
would
Palm
show
Beach,
up
and
as a mutual.
three guys
Like
on the way
a
back.
friend of
And
hers.
Nolan,
It's easy to
Nolan
find.
wasn't the
Yeah, I
It's a
don't know.
friend of a friend
The
of a
way
friend.
yeah, the way I take him saying it is that they all knew her. That's how I take that.
Yeah, the way I'm taking it is the fact that they all had her number.
Right.
They
That's. I mean,
all
it could be
contacted
Snapchat.
her.
But
And it could be, but even then, at the very beginning, they said they didn't know her. So all of a sudden, how in a matter of a few hours or 8 hours or whatever the case would be, they're going to look her up on Snapchat, find her, and then get a hold. If they really didn't know her, because that's what they said at the beginning, is they didn't know her, and Nolan didn't know her, but Nolan
Right.
just met her, and he really liked her. He kind of liked her, and he said none of us knew her. And now I missed that. I'm glad you caught that, Chris, because I didn't even catch that.
and remember, supposedly the boat that he was standing on the back of is Katie's father.
That's what they were saying. I heard
And
that.
did I hear last night that he's a sheriff
I think he is.
or some type of law enforcement?
Some
That's what
type
they
of
said
law
on Patriot
enforcement.
Pride.
Or
I need.
yeah.
Were you on Patriot Pride last night? No,
Me, no.
and neither was Doug. Doug was
I
probably
was there.
sleeping.
I was there for the beginning, and then I fell asleep. I was so tired.
I know. I was yelling for you too because I was like, "Is Doug out there?" Because they were asking me questions. I'm like, "I don't remember." I'm like, "Where's Doug? Where's Doug? Where's Dee Dee? Dee Dee Dee?" And nobody was there. It left me hanging.
Doug, what did you say? Because you were marbled. I couldn't. You were garbled a little bit. I couldn't understand what
I was just saying that the friends that he's talking about calling Katie could have been another group of friends because I'm sure they have mutuals. So if you knew he was staying with Katie, you would have been calling some of Katie's friends, and they would have been the ones trying to reach Katie. And in the beginning, they said that Katie they thought was missing too. So obviously nobody could get a hold of her. Then he said he called Trayvon to get Mom's number because Trayvon said he hadn't seen him. And then he said, if I
Right.
talk to his mother and she hasn't heard from him, I'm calling the Coast Guard. It wasn't until after he talked to Christine that he was going to call the Coast Guard.
Well, I'm curious too. Why did they think Katie was missing? Where were
Because
they?
nobody could reach her at first. When all the people he's talking about were calling her, she wasn't responding.
Well, there's my next question. Where was she?
Where was she? Exactly.
Yeah, where were they? So I mean, they could have been on any part of the island by themselves. You know, they could have been down the other end in a nook and cranny somewhere.
And then
But-
somebody came over there.
Something's off now.
Oh,
To me,
absolutely.
now it's off more now than it was yesterday for me.
Yeah. I missed that. I don't know how in the hell I missed that, but I did. Good catch. Good catch.
Very good catch.
And yeah,
No
and he's the
doubt.
law enforcement.
Hey.
Thank God you're not on my case, pal.
Hey, every squirrel finds a nut somewhere, right?
Yeah, I found you. Yep.
You found
nuts.
a nut. You did. You found a nut.
Well, you didn't see my chat from earlier?
No,
When you guys were
I was
talking-
on that.
I know you weren't. You read through the chats. I put in there because somebody said something about nuts, and I said all I know is you two are nuts, meaning you and Doug. But you didn't see that.
I did it, man.
I'm sure you just read over it. Oh yeah, never mind that. Nah.
Really?
No. But yeah, no. And like a lot of people are saying in the chat, he looks really comfortable, and he's talking like whatever.
See, he talks comfortable. He sits comfortable. I don't
Yeah.
buy he looks comfortable as he's answering these questions.
No. I just think his entire manner of just sitting there and it's just kind of like, well, you know, we were on above it, just kind of like rolling off him. But
He knows he's got GPS data
yeah.
on his side.
I guarantee you, the lawyer is sitting out
Oh,
of camera
no doubt.
Absolutely.
because they're not going to let him talk by himself.
No
way. You say the wrong freaking thing, you're done.
You know, you don't think that there's nobody behind him that's giving these hand signals like, no.
Nope,
Okay,
don't answer
okay.
that. Yes,
No,
I
no,
do.
no.
There's cue
You know,
cards.
yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, I really, yeah, that to me that's very telling. And the Katie thing, that's very
That
interesting.
really
Yeah,
bothers me that,
absolutely.
I would understand if Nolan had her number to text, but him and all his other friends or all the other friends, if they don't know her, you ain't gonna have her number.
Or
But
was Big
again,
Hairy Dude there?
say that again.
Or was Big Hairy Dude there with her number?
Yeah.
Yep.
So when I was on Patriot Pride last night, that's one of the questions, because Barney was there too, and she brought up the question about the hairy dude in the pool, and they hadn't seen that yet. So she brought it up, and then I got talking about it because we were on together, and I was like, look at the guy in back of the kids, and they finally found him, and then they were all like, oh wow, he does look a lot older. And I was like, yeah, he's got the USA shaved into his chest. And then they were kind of like, oh wow, we didn't notice that. And even they agreed that he just looks too old to be part of that group, So they were definitely like, uncle something on those ends, you know what I mean? So yeah, so
That's interesting. I'm glad you pointed that out, man, because I didn't catch that. That's crazy.
yeah, I just caught it then. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. How the hell?
Another thing I noticed is he says it's the Triton boat that was sinking. I was led to believe initial reporting that it was the blue boat that they went there on.
Yeah, the
But
what
it
was
was
the other
actually
kid's
the
name?
Triton boat.
What was
But
the other kid's name?
this is the judge's kid right here, right? Is this him?
Yes.
Okay, so the way he's talking, he wasn't even on his boat.
Right.
He was on somebody else's boat. So
what was that other kid's name? I wrote it down. Hang on. I wrote it down.
Who had his boat though?
It's
why wouldn't he have his own boat?
Wyatt's boat.
Yeah, so why wouldn't he have his boat? Who's driving his boat?
Because Wyatt's boat was sinking. So who had his boat? Yeah.
What? You went on? You just let somebody else take your boat? I don't think so.
No.
So why weren't you on your boat, dude? Or is there somebody else there that had his boat, like an adult wise? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why would you get your boat ready and then you go with somebody else? That doesn't make any sense.
That makes sense a lot now.
I remember him saying that, and Doug just saying that. I was like, well, wait a minute, because he said, well, I got on, this one's boat, and it started to have an issue, and blah blah blah. But what the hell's your boat, dude?
That is very true, because it was
Wyatt's
boat,
sus.
and he was going back on Wyatt's boat.
Right. So who took his boat back?
Could be Jack.
Could be, but could be Jack.
It's just odd. There's a lot of odd stuff here.
No, there's definitely that old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's definitely something there. To what it is, as far as what role and what everybody has to play in it, that I don't know.
So what I think is, unfortunately, what I think is in this case is in need of. I think this case is in need of another whole refresh from the beginning.
Well, maybe we need to do that
for us.
I agree.
And start from
go back to the beginning.
Morning and see what we can find for the morning, and then I think we should.
I agree.
I think we should work on that, Doug.
Yeah,
maybe we should work on that. If you guys, I got to work tonight, but tonight, tomorrow after the morning show, just work on it all day and maybe see if we can get it presented for 5 tomorrow. Or
sounds good to me.
I'm thinking, because we're, like it just said in the chat that Miss Bonnie said, yes, we must keep reviewing these details, and
Who else is on? Who else is usually on during that time at like 4 or 3? Anybody?
I don't know. I don't even
Not
know
typically,
anymore.
no.
Not typically.
Not typically, but the only what I have realized in the past lately that maybe this is something we do for like Saturday evening, because I don't know a lot of people on Saturday nights.
Yeah,
It's
true.
usually kind of quiet because I'm usually sitting here like, why isn't anybody on or something? So, but I mean, I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, we might need a little more time.
What do you think? What do you think for tomorrow? But what do you think? Is there a better time that we won't be conflicting with somebody else? Some other streamer. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the problem. Like El said, JLR is sometimes on whenever,
Right.
but I'm not too concerned about that because you really can't. Yeah, so the weekend night is are tough. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we may want to not do this tomorrow or Saturday. We may want to do this like maybe we should do it Tuesday at 10 a.m. Give us some days to get all the information.
I think there's a lot coming out though, Chris. I think we need to do this either Saturday or tomorrow. I would say Saturday but there's nobody hardly on. I would say tomorrow. I'm just trying to figure out what's a good time because I think I know the people that we pull in will they'll always be there. So from you, myself, and from Doug, I know they're going to be there. It's just a matter if anybody else is going live. And what's it at 3 hours from Arizona time? So if we're doing it East Coast, we're doing it. If we did it, let's say at 3 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock. Ain't that the hottest time out there in Arizona?
Any time between 10 a.m. and 5.
Okay.
But the quiet time is for us is usually from noon till 4, like AJ said.
Okay.
That's usually the slow time. You know what I mean? Unless there's breaking news.
Okay, so what time? Okay, so with that, saying that, what would be the best time to pull the most? Because I think if we do this, it'll be a damn good live. We'll definitely get the word out.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would say is maybe tomorrow.
Okay, don't worry about my time in the morning. Just figure out what's the best time.
Well, I was gonna say, do you still want to do your 9, or do you want to?
No.
You want to push it to noon?
We can do that.
Is everybody in the chat? I mean, noon tomorrow.
Hey guys, you guys all good with doing it tomorrow at noon? Going back to the beginning and breaking this down since we've got all this information that has come up.
Yeah, so 10 to 3 or 4 is usually good. So, I mean, we can do whatever you want, 10, 11, 12, whatever. I mean, if we need to find stuff while we're live, that's fine. We're here to do it. You know what I mean? So
why don't we shoot for 12?
12? Okay.
Why don't we shoot for 12 and see if we can do it at 12? How's that sound, Doug?
That works for me.
12 is fine for me.
I think that'll work good. I think people from the West Coast will still be, not really getting all together. People, JLR, like you said, we can't predict when he goes on. So really, that's really the only thing. Yeah, I think that would be a good time, 12 o'clock.
That's fine.
Okay. All right.
Give us some time to dig up some stuff. And,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure we have most of it already, just in the videos, the pictures that Doug sent. I have those, but I like to come up with, good timeline, but I just want to be able to look back and see, okay, this is what he said now, what he just said on this recording here, and just to make sure the boats and all the good stuff. So yeah, that's
I think that's spot on. I think, and that's what we always say, go back to the beginning, take what you've learned, go back to the beginning and see what you missed,
right.
or what, you can find a contradiction. So I think that's a
Yep.
smart idea. Yeah, let's shoot for noon tomorrow. What do you think, Doug? Good.
That's worked perfect for me. Yep.
Okay,
That's
let's do
me.
let's do it on. If for some reason I'm a tad bit late, I shouldn't be late. I'll be okay. I'll see you guys at 12 then.
If you're late, you're fired.
You can't
That's-
fire Grandpa. What the hell's wrong with you?
No. You're my uncle again.
Oh my God! Now I'm the uncle.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I came up with a new name for you. Grand Uncle. Grand Uncle.
Great uncle, Grand
You know what I'm saying?
Art Grand Funkle.
Yeah. There you go.
Second Uncle Dog.
Oh my Lord, you're killing me. All right, everybody, what do you guys think? No,
Yeah.
we're gonna do one tomorrow.
Sounds good to me.
Tarek says, "Thank you, DD. You got it. We'll do it tomorrow." And hey, I know, Chris, you do a good job with. Doug does great with information. I know you do good putting things in, like, your little nice, neat.
Well,
little...
that's because I send Doug all the information first, and then he just.
I'm sorry, Chris. Don't worry, Doug. I don't believe that one bit.
I need him to be able to, say a little thing and sound good. You know what I'm saying? So I just email him every night. Yeah, just say this tomorrow. You'll look good.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So,
Awesome.
and we
Yes.
give you the little ends and bits pieces, Doug. You know what I mean? Saying, Doug.
Perfect. Yep.
And Chris, just for what it's worth,
Oh, here we
every
go.
time you say Doug,
I know.
you say dog, you sound like Doug.
I know.
And when you say Doug, you sound like dog.
Like Doug. I know. That's why I try to remember to call you DD, but you know what?
There you go. Just go with DD.
My brotherly uncle. That's what Miss Bonnie said.
Oh, Lordy mercy. Yes, we will do it tomorrow at 12. It's going to be a good one, everybody. Let's go ahead and put it out there. If you can let people know, we're going to do a breakdown and see where it goes.
No, I'm not Canadian. Do I sound Canadian? Hey?
No, you're Boston, dude. You're all
I'm
Boston.
Boston.
He's all Boston.
Me and Doug are the same.
My brotherly uncle laughing out loud. Didi,
Down.
Marianne. Hey, Marianne, what's your idea? Didi, Marianne had an idea. What's that, Marianne? Fill us in. Fill us in, Marianne. Let me see if I've seen it earlier, maybe.
Didi, I have a quick question for you. Why can't anybody comment on your videos after lives?
On my video?
Is it set up that way? Yeah, like when we do lives and then you post them, like if you go to watch them afterwards, there's no comment section on your videos that aren't during the live.
Maybe I gotta say, oh, you know what? Well, what does that mean when I hit this one here? Hang on.
Just curious. I've noticed it when I've watched videos before that there's never any after action comments.
Well, you know what? I think it's because. Okay,
Right,
I think
AJ.
I think I know what it is. I'm hitting this little button here that says "Show comments on stage." Is that maybe it?
No.
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 Okay,
That
well, then
just
which one
shows
is
them
it?
on the screen. I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, hell, you tell me no, but
Something
you
else
don't
for you to
know.
look into.
Yes, we will look into that. I will get my wife right on it.
What? No
But I don't
wonder
know,
why
'cause
everything's. No wonder why everything runs so smooth on his end, because he has his wife do it,
You better-
and she brings him
You better
pancakes and
correct
milk.
yourself. You were gonna say, no wonder everything's all screwed up. Yeah, right. Read your mind, brother. No, it's actually going good. Get him to say dawn. Say dawn, Chris.
Why?
I don't know. Jeannie wants to hear you say dawn because you
Dawn.
don't know how. Say dawn, and
Dawn.
dawn.
From dusk till dawn.
Yep, it sounds like I'm saying dawn, like D-O-N. Are you looking for dawn? Doug's from the same place, so you can ask him too.
Guys, where's okay? Here, this says hide comment. Let's see. Okay, that's that. I don't know what the hell I just did.
What did I say? No, Doug. That's the ejection button.
Huh? Stop
Miss
it.
Bonnie. She commented, no, Doug. That's Dog.
Oh, I see. That's for the comments on the side. Okay.
Coffee.
Got
Listen,
you.
I'm gonna say this one more time, guys. Doug, the guy in the middle, is from my same area, so
Yeah,
you can
he's
ask
got that
him to
accent
say
too.
stuff too.
He definitely has the same accent.
Coffee, park the car in
Park
Harvard
the
Yard,
car.
but coffee, Don, whatever else. What else?
Hey, you ever see Ray Donovan?
Oh yeah, I love Ray.
I love Ray Donovan.
Yep.
That was one of me and my wife's like favorite show we'd watch.
Reminds me of Feldman.
What's that?
Reminds me of Feldman.
Yeah, yeah. Ms. Barney. Does anybody know what was Marianne proposing? Marianne said tomorrow we can go over the ransom note that was released and give you time to get everything you need together. Ransom note.
Which note?
Dee, they released a ransom note. Can we go over that tomorrow? Well, we could.
Who released a note? Like an original note or a new note?
Is this
from Nancy?
From Nancy Guthrie, Marianne?
Why didn't I hear about that?
I didn't hear about it either.
Same.
We suck.
Dee, they released the ransom note. Can we go over it tomorrow? When did they release it, Marianne?
So new information on old note is what I'm
Brianna
gathering.
Whitney from Crime Junkie posted she gave some new information. Says AJ. Brianna Whitney, that's who did the before when she worked at KOLV or whatever in the hell it's called. Now she's working for Crime Junkie. It's the one to Savannah.
Okay, so the apologetic one, right? The second one that only went to KOLD.
Everything I'm seeing right here says first ransom note. So what is this? New details emerge on chilling Nancy Guthrie ransom note with warning to Savannah. 44 minutes ago. This article was posted 44 minutes ago, but
let's see.
Don't we already know everything?
I thought we did, but let's see here.
No, we don't know everything.
If a doctor has issued a warning about what happened if the money wasn't handed over. We already know that. Was not received by last deadline on Monday the 9th at 5 p.m. She will be killed. Your mother is aware of this and her life is in your hands. Did we hear that? I don't think we heard that, did we?
New developments in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping case ransom note details. Let's see what it says. New information has surfaced regarding the initial ransom note linked to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The message directed to Savannah Guthrie anonymously stated that her mother's life is in her hands. Nancy has been unaccounted for since January 31st, with her family reporting her missing on February the 1st. Authorities suspect that she was abducted from her Tucson, Arizona residence during the early hours by an unidentified individual who was seen on surveillance footage tampering with her doorbell camera. Crime journalist Brianna Whitney disclosed the note's contents during her appearance on the Crime Junkie podcast with Ashley Flowers. She recited the note, which began with, "Hello, Savannah. We have your mother, Nancy. She is safe but scared. She will be held for ransom, and once payment is received, she will be released unharmed. We will be holding her for a maximum of 7 days." And then it goes on.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because this is from Whitney too. It says Whitney also claimed that the note included precise information about Nancy's residence, mentioning the white smartwatch on the floor near her bed But listen to this part. Like at the foot of the bed, along with the flood light destroyed in the backyard. I never heard that.
Yeah, I never heard about the light destroyed in the backyard. I heard
So
about
they
the
left
floodlight.
that. So yeah, we should probably go over this tomorrow.
That was leaked. Both of them points were leaked. It also said that it mentioned her clothes, what she was wearing, but we haven't been told it officially. But it was leaked that was in the letter. The
Well,
floodlight in the
yeah.
clothes.
Well, so that's going to be Brianna, bro. Because remember, Brianna Whitney is the one who actually, she saw the letter. It was written to KOVA.
Yeah.
She actually saw the letter, but she couldn't say nothing. Now that she's working with the Crime Junkie program, apparently she's now gave them more details on what the note said. So maybe we should cover this.
Definitely.
Yeah. Maybe
I'll
we
tell you
should
what,
just have,
let's do this at 12 o'clock.
yeah.
Let's do this at 12 o'clock, and then we'll go ahead and do the other one. When's a good time? Monday? Monday or Sunday?
I
Or
mean, I don't
Monday
care.
or Saturday?
We can do Monday at 10 instead of Tuesday at 10, if that's good with you.
Let's do that. That's fine with me. I don't have
All
a
right,
problem
so
with it.
people, so tomorrow noontime will be Nancy Guthrie.
Yep.
And then Monday at 10 a.m. will be Nolen Wells.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
So yeah.
All right, everybody. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the new information proposed by Marianne to go over the new information on tomorrow at noon, and then we'll go ahead and do Monday at 10. We'll go ahead and do a new starting from the beginning with the Nolen Wells case. Being that we have a lot more information, and we can go back and make sure everything's sound and clear. Sound good, everybody? Okay, that's what we're gonna do.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, my friends. Hey, check
all right, I'm
yourselves
off
out.
to work.
All
I'm
right.
off to work. Thank
be
you
safe,
all.
brother.
Thank
You
you,
got
chat.
it. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Later,
Thank
Devil
you,
Puff.
boys.
Later, Devil Dog. Chris.
Later,
I'll talk
Doug.
to you.
Yep.
Thank
We'll
you,
see
Doug.
you guys.
Appreciate everything you do. Chris, appreciate everything you do.
You
Look
too, my
forward
man.
to it. All right, my
All right,
brother.
Gramps.
God bless,
Oh,
guys.
I like that. That's what I'm going to call you, Gramps. I like Gramps better, you know?
Oh, my God.
That's
Semper Fi, my brother. Semper Fi.
Yeah, Semper Fi, Gramps.
You
Semper
got
Fi,
it.
Gramps.
You got it. Semper
All right.
Fi.
See you guys.
All right.
Peace.
Hey, everybody. God bless. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate all of you. We got a plan. Thanks, Marianne, for that plug, because that sounds like a good idea. And remember, 12 o'clock noon tomorrow. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. And then Monday, we'll cover back go back to the beginning with the Nolen Wells. Barney, good night, everyone. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate everybody who helped and make this channel as great as it is, because you guys are the ones who make it happen. And I appreciate all of you. Appreciate every one of you. And thank you, everyone who has helped grow the channel. It means a lot. You guys are doing awesome, and I appreciate every one of you. Thank you, mods. Thank you, everybody. With that, remember, it's all common sense, everybody. Everything is common sense. Semper Fi.